Good evening. On behalf of superheroes everywhere, and superheroines, or super persons if you prefer, I bid you welcome.
That I have your attention, we'll proceed.
Welcome to Now Playing's DC Comics Team Up Retrospective Series.
He calls my arrival the dawn of the superhero. I am not sure if I know what that means.
Continuing our look at movies based on DC Comics characters, Arnie, Stuart, and Jacob will be reviewing Legends of the Superheroes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world's mightiest mortal.
Justice League of America.
We all need heroes in our lives. Sometimes we find them in the most unlikely places.
Gen 13.
Once the students become Gen active, no one will be able to stop us. Not Lynch, not the government.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
League of what? There have been other times when a danger upon the world required the services of singular individuals.
And Watchmen.
And all the whores and politicians will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper, "No."
This podcast will contain detailed plot spoilers and mild language.
That was naughty.
Listener discretion is advised.
Sounds cool. I kind of like the superhero stuff. We'll be just like a super friend.
I hope you're ready, hero.
When you are.
Today we're watching Watchmen, starring Regina King, Don Johnson, Tim Blake Nelson, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Andrew Howard, Jacob Ming Trent, Tom Meissen, Sarah Vickers, Dylan Schombing, Jean Smart, Hong Chow, with Louis Gossett Jr. and Jeremy Irons, created by Damon Lindelof. This is Arnie, co-host of Now Playing, and I'm a podcaster, not the lone fucking ranger.
And Stuart?
And this is just another flaw in this thoughtless design, Jacob.
Who watched The Watchmen back in 2019? I did. I was there, and I wanted to say, rare is the superhero entertainment that I make voluntary room for. I get a lot of that just by being a host on this show. There is a lot of superhero stuff. The Boys, people tell me I'd really like that show.
I really like that show.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm not interested in doing it. I'm good on superheroes. But this one had enough buzz and just had the right people involved that I was very intrigued and totally hooked.
And I ignored it. I pushed it off because around this time, DC was doing horrendous stuff with Watchmen. Like, after the Snyder film, they had liberty to just do more. Like, they had really pulled that away from Alan Moore, and they had done their before Watchmen series where they're like prequel stories for all the different characters. But then, between 2017 and 2019, they're like, hey, let's just put the Watchmen in the DC universe, guys. Let's just merge all that. And that's like, okay, now I get you, Alan Moore. Now you could be that cranky man always railing against Hollywood screwing up your stuff. Because I'm like, no, that's awful. That's not what you do with this piece of literature.
Yeah, it's funny. Damon Lindelof did reach out to Alan Moore when making this.
They always do. They want that credibility.
And Alan Moore went public with this letter and said it was a lot of neurotic rambling. Lindelof said, "I'm one of the bastards currently destroying Watchmen," and then just rambled on, and Moore replied with a request to do not contact me again.
And so I ignored this. I'm like, oh, this is just going to be some other bad cash-in thing. But then I heard from another comic book podcast they had similar opinions with what DC did with this property. Like, they're like, it's actually good. And so, yeah, it intrigued me. So I ended up checking it out in 2020. It was a pandemic watch for me.
Let me just understand what I think you just said. So DC has treated these characters like they can hang out with Batman and Aquaman?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, some of them have interacted now, and I'll just leave it at that. It's to me, that's blasphemy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just don't see that being a party that goes off well. These gloomy Gusses are not going to, with bro Aquaman. Yeah! No. Not a good night.
And I didn't watch this because, honestly, life is too short for me to do Now Playing and keep up with DC television. They did so much television, and as I understand it, a lot of it's very good. The Arrowverse stuff, the Superman and Lois show that's on right now.
There's 4 seasons of the Doom Patrol that I'm working my way through. I've been working my way through for a few years trying to get through that series. I can't believe that's got 4 seasons.
Yeah, there's just so much DC television content that I have to pick and choose. I did watch most of Smallville, but I have checked out of DC TV. Watchmen grabbed my interest a little bit, and then I saw who was in charge, Damon Lindelof, and I went, I'll wait and see what people say about it, because I was such a Damon Lindelof fanboy during Lost. I was listening to the podcast he did with Carlton Cuse every week, discussing the Lost episode that just came out. I worshipped Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse because I thought Lost was just so genius. And then I saw the last season of that show, and I saw Prometheus, and I saw more things that Damon Lindelof did.
Wait a minute! You recommended Prometheus.
But I was let down by it. I may have recommended it, but it was not the movie I wanted it to be, and it asked a lot of questions that never got answered, even with Covenant.
Okay.
And I found Damon Lindelof to be very good at asking questions and really bad at answering them. And so, honestly, now his name is something that will ward me away from projects.
Yeah, I feel like Lost really hurt you. Anything with J.J. Abrams or David Lindelof, I feel like your guard's already up.
Yeah, Prometheus was not him at his A game. And we also covered Cowboys and Aliens, and I don't think anybody cared.
That's not even a C game.
The series that impressed me, I never got into Lost, partly because people like Arnie always told me there's nothing there once you get at the end. I did watch his HBO show, The Leftovers, which was fitfully brilliant. It had moments of just sheer genius. It was so uneven. You'd watch an episode and you're like, God, that was terrible. I don't think I'm going to watch anymore. And the next one I would be in tears. And it would be like that for about most of the first season. And then they brought Regina King in the second season. And it really just, it helped congeal that show. And it really, one of the best TV series I've ever seen. And I think that he did a tremendous job of adapting that book. And I'll tell you this, the payout is there. It's one of the few mystery shows where the reveal is the best part of it.
Well, he did say in stuff that I'd read about Watchmen that he learned from Lost that you don't want to start asking questions if you don't have answers to them. So that may have helped with that series you watched, that he went in there with lessons learned.
And that, one of my questions, this only has 1 season. I think that's why we're doing it. It's not coming back. And I was worried watching this. Is it going to end with a cliffhanger, or is it going to have all these loose subplots? I could find subplots here and there. There's definitely a character that shows up and then never gets explained. But was there plans for a season 2 at all?
When this show came out, HBO was talking about it as a continuing series. And Damon Lindelof looked at this, though, and said he did what he wanted to do with the series, and he would not be involved in a second season. HBO has retconned this and now claims it's a limited series. And if they do more, they will do more limited series. But initially, there was talk of a season 2 of this.
Yeah, it was a word-of-mouth hit. It started out like, let's just face it. Watchmen is not for everybody. Alan Moore is not mainstream, proudly so. And so, yeah, to do what was done on the page, that was the mystery, is how much of this is even going to be connected to his work. You wouldn't think that that would be something a lot of people would get into, but this thing was a huge hit. Not only did the ratings build week by week, but it swept the Emmys. It won Best Limited Series, Regina King won, every technical award won, writing, directing. This thing was massively popular, and I think there is pressure to create the next series, and Lindelof just says, I don't have a story, and I'm not going to cheapen this by just greenlighting another season if, as Arnie says, you don't tell a mystery where you don't know the answer. And I don't think that he's figured out where they can go beyond this. He conceived this as a standalone 9-episode arc.
Yeah, because I was very worried that we were opening a door by reviewing this at all, because it was considered season 1 when it came out, but Lindelof said that he kind of viewed it as a long movie with a beginning, a middle, and a definite end. And while you can always make sequels to movies, this is basically a mini-series that he created, so hopefully we're not dooming ourselves to endless seasons of Watchmen. It's been 5 years now almost, so I feel like the chances of anything returning from this miniseries, any of this cast returning for a follow-up, is small. More Watchmen stuff coming feels inevitable, but not more of this.
And it's a long miniseries, like 9 episodes. Okay, that doesn't sound too long, but like almost every one of these is an hour or more. Like this is not your half-hour Secret Invasion episodes. It's a heavy series.
Let me just put it out there. I would love to go in depth in the way that Now Playing loves to dig in when, you really have something to chew on. We could probably spend a podcast like we did on Twin Peaks. Every episode is its own podcast. I'd love to do it, but yeah, we don't have 9 weeks to do that. Aquaman is coming out this weekend. That's kind of why we plugged it into the schedule now.
So you are putting Aquaman and the Watchmen together. Even you're doing it, not just DC.
Well, if you want to know the real truth, if I got to go and watch that shit, I wanted to see something I liked first. And so this is the palate cleanser before I have to drink from that tank.
And I'm like, man, I can't wait to see Aquaman after seeing this.
You're like that right now?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And you talk about we could do an hour on every episode here. We could. I wouldn't want to.
Oh, no. Why are we all... I thought for sure this was an easy 3 green arrows. Like, there's no way that anyone would give this a red arrow.
We'll find out.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, I'm going to make you do the plot then.
The year is 2019. 30 years after Adrian Veidt, played by Jeremy Irons, landed his transdimensional squid in New York City, averting nuclear war. And if you don't know about the squid, this is not a sequel to the Zack Snyder movie. It's a sequel to the comic series, one of the few things I knew about this coming in. The world still lives in fear of future squid attacks, a fear reinforced by random rains of squid babies across the globe. This is a hoax perpetrated by Veidt. Our story takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We follow police detective Angela Abar, played by Regina King, who goes by the name Sister Night when in her masked persona. See, after a group of racists called the 7th Cavalry put on Rorschach masks and attacked police officers in their homes, a law was passed to allow police to wear masks on the job to protect their identities and their families. So, mini-cops have special get-ups and code names. Angela's police chief, Judd Crawford, played by Don Johnson, has been murdered, and it's discovered he's a closet racist, as in he literally kept a Klan outfit in a secret compartment of his closet. Angela investigates this murder. An elderly man appears to Angela. This man is Angela's grandfather, Will Reeves, played by Louis Gossett Jr., and despite being wheelchair-bound, he claims he hung Chief Crawford. Also sent to investigate this murder is FBI agent Lori Blake, played by Jean Smart. Blake used to be the vigilante known as Silk Spectre, the younger one, but now runs an anti-vigilante task force for the FBI. She goes to Tulsa to try and unravel the mystery. Well, it turns out this is a start of an overall plot by the 7th Cavalry to kidnap Dr. Manhattan. Most people think Dr. Manhattan is living on Mars, but, in fact, Manhattan removed his memories and powers and became Angela's husband Cal, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. The 7th Cavalry plan is to kill Dr. Manhattan and put his infinite powers in the body of Senator Joe Keene, leader of the 7th Cavalry. Angela reminds Dr. Manhattan who he really is, and he resumes taking his glowing blue form, but he's kidnapped by the technologies used by the cavalry. They destroy his body and capture his powers in the machine. Yet that plot has been engineered by an even higher mind. Lady True, owner of True Industries, played by Hong Chow, is Adrian Veidt's biological daughter and the smartest woman in the world. She engineered all this so the 7th Cavalry would do the work of kidnapping Dr. Manhattan, but then she could steal his powers. She kills the leadership of the 7th Cavalry and prepares to transfer Dr. Manhattan's powers into herself. She is stopped by her father. Adrian Veidt had been living in exile on a moon of Jupiter, a respite given to him by Dr. Manhattan a decade prior. He recently escaped from the moon thanks to help from Lady True and returned to Earth. He uses his baby squid teleporting technology to send frozen squids down on Lady True. The projectile squids land like bullets, destroying True's machine and killing Lady True herself as credits roll. And now that's a 10,000-foot summary. That's like from the view of where the squids fall, because we'll talk about a lot of details. I could have spent, as Stuart said, probably an hour just giving a plot summary of this with all the different characters, all the different subplots. But the basic plot overall starts with the murder of Don Johnson, ends with Dr. Manhattan being killed and people trying to steal his powers.
Yeah, no, I thought you did a pretty good, concise job of taking an unwieldy series and, making it sound like a average movie. I want to just get it out of the way right off the bat, because I know people are going to say the word woke, right? Let's get woke out of the way. This movie will begin with a black and white film of a man in black lassoing a man in white. And if your definition of that word, I suppose, is that black people, people of color, historically uncelebrated identities are given tokenism roles of made the hero so that whites can look bad, I suppose that this might be triggering for you. I suppose some people are going to get 5 minutes into this and say, not my superhero movie.
Watchmen, more like woke men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this whole series is a treatise on race. Now, do I need a treatise on race coming from Damon Lindelof, a middle-aged white man? Probably not. I think there are other people who could probably be more insightful about it. Now, he did assemble a writer's room that was 50% black and 50% female to try to bring this in. But when you look at the writing credits at the end of these episodes, more often than not, you see Lindelof and not a whole bunch of other names. So I feel like Damon Lindelof was in a place where he wanted to talk about race, racism, and specifically the Tulsa Massacre, and he wrote what he wanted in the framework of Watchmen.
Are you saying it's a bad thing that a white guy educated probably a whole lot of people? I'll say he educated me about Black Wall Street and Tulsa 1921. Like, that's something they don't teach in school. At least they didn't when we were kids. And so I don't care the color of the person that's teaching me this history. This is great stuff.
I just want to frame it this way. That first Watchmen was very much about the Cold War of 1985. If you're bringing Watchmen back in 2019, is there a better topic to talk about than the racial politics of Trump America, of the Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter? This is even before George Floyd, and there's so much about what this show is going to touch on that feels relevant and topical in the same way that the nukes issue would have back when that comic came out in 1985. You've got to make it hot. You've got to make it something that people are really passionate about. This is absolutely the right place to go. If you don't want to see superheroes go to controversial areas, I don't know, you're just different than me. I like when the genre explores new areas. I think that it helps keep it alive that they're willing to tackle new subject matter and go deeper.
And if you read all the supplemental writings in the Watchmen comics when it originally came out, all those newspaper articles, all the stuff without pictures, that's really hard to read because there's so many words. But, like, there's a lot of racial stuff hinted at as well. Like, Alan Moore was tackling a lot. I agree. It's mostly about the Cold War when you read that story. But, yeah, how do you take what is relevant today, what is our Cold War today, and put it into the Watchmen? This seems like the right way to go.
And I'm going to take this series where it's at and understand that there is an agenda behind it. I'm not opposed to that agenda. I sometimes feel like there's a fine line between what our co-host Brock calls the message mallet and just making a point. And I feel like this series strays away from the message mallet. I never feel hit over the head with the things it's trying to say, but while at the same time, it's pretty obvious in its positioning. And yeah, like you said, Stuart, a lot of people are going to get 5-10 minutes into this and want to turn it off. I'm going to meet this series where it's at and say, okay, what can Damon Lindelof teach me? I did know about the Tulsa Massacre. I'm not sure where I learned of it, but it wasn't in school. It was much more recent. It was within the past 10 years that I learned of it. And so that wasn't news to me. But what can he show me? What can he do with Watchmen? I agree it does need to be topical, and this is a hot button issue as much now as it was then.
Yeah, and we get started here in 1921. We don't know that we're in a race massacre. It's just a movie theater. One thing that I always appreciated about the comic book was that it always talked about print media and, like right-wing mags and pirate comic books. They found ways of talking about just the industry itself of comic books. This TV series is also going to try and do a similar thing by looking at TV and mixed media and just the way that things get visualized. And yes, by starting with an old movie, it feels appropriate. By the way, Bass Reeves is a real person, and you can watch his show on Paramount Plus. They just greenlit a real series about this guy that this little kid is watching.
And I thought the joke was like silent blaxploitation film, like way ahead of its time. But the big surprise is that, yeah, it's this black sheriff that's defeating the evil white sheriff, but it's a white townsfolk that are cheering him on. Like the race isn't a big thing. It's like, just like Superman came down and he happened to be black, like no one cared. And so that's the big surprise. I thought, oh yeah, they're making a Western for the black folks. No, it's really more subversive than even that.
Well, yes, but it's only in the movies, right? In the movies, we see white people celebrating a black hero. And then we step outside of this movie theater and we see a town in utter chaos. Yes, what we're watching is a historically accurate depiction of a very successful black business area in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was decimated. I don't even know the inciting incident. Do you guys know?
Accusations of a black guy touching a white woman, between rape and just like flirting. There's a wide range of stories.
Yeah, that is what it always comes down to, is protection of white women.
Yeah, but that's always just the excuse that clearly, again, some people here are in Klan robes. They wanted to do this, and then this gives them the permission to get an airplane, a crop duster, and just like fly by and mow people down. This scene is harrowing and a grabber. It's exactly what you need at the beginning of a TV series to get people hooked. Who would turn this off?
I was curious about the little kid we've been following. Is he a superhero? Are we going to find out he's bulletproof during this? Because he's being rushed through and his parents are hiding him in the back of a truck and they're trying to get out of town.
Yeah, and I guess if you're looking for mystery boxes, you do get one here. That truck is going to crash and get bombed, turn over. Those parents are going to die. And that young boy, Will, is going to be in that field and find a baby.
Yeah, we don't have him identified. We won't know who this character is. He's holding a note that his dad wrote out in a rush, and that will be a device used. By the second episode, we'll see the creation of that pamphlet. It's actually World War I propaganda that ends up becoming a message that says, watch over this boy. And yeah, it will help us understand that this character is Lou Gossett Jr., who I think, I always think of Jaws 3D, kind of an overactor, will have a very nuanced and complicated persona in this movie, both a hero and maybe a villain. And I think that's what's being played. That's why I really don't like the term woke, because woke implies tokenism and favoritism. And I think all of the characters that we're going to see have very complicated identities where no one is all good or bad.
Yeah, I'll agree with what you said about Louis Gossett Jr. My go-to is An Officer and a Gentleman. I think he won an Oscar for that one.
He did.
He didn't for Jaws 3.
What?
But I do think of him as a big actor, and it's a little disappointing to see him play it well. I just kind of wanted Lou to be Lou, and he is not Lou in this.
Yes, everything is dialed back and dark, and that's what you kind of expect with Alan Moore. But we jump to September 8th, 2019, from this event that's shocking with violence. And will this kid make it? He finds a baby and wraps it in an American flag. What will become of him? And suddenly we're watching a black officer pull over a white guy who's clearly been drinking in 2019 Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this thing is going to go sideways quick.
Yeah, I just like the world building here because Watchmen is an alternative history. So you start seeing those little branches going off of reality here where, like, obviously something with cops and violence has gone down because you got to get permission to unlock your gun and they're allowed to cover their faces. I like how they're dripping all this information in visually and just through the action as they build this world.
And it's a really interesting way to go because when you see this cop come up and he's wearing a mask and he's pulling this guy over The guy asks, "Can I see your face?" And the cop just stares at him. It's really easy to be on the side of the guy in the car, and they're going to play with that expectation because, a masked cop does not seem like a great idea given historical events at this point. And so that the cop is not showing his face, pulled this guy over, but it turns out the cop's going to be the one in the right here and is going to get murdered. The guy in the truck is in this group called the 7th Cavalry, which is basically the KKK in Rorschach masks, who are as anti-cop as they are anti-black.
Yeah, let's go back and revisit that Alan Moore comic for a bit. Rorschach. He seemed like, more or less, a character we were rooting for. I think that's a word I would use. He was heroic enough, kind of psychotic. How he left the world was by writing a political screed in which he says the government lies to you, and they create fake squids and do false flag attacks, and basically abolish the police. That's where Rorschach is weighing in, and we see 30 years later, it's really had an impact. We now have militias going around wearing his mask in honor of that, and killing cops.
Look, I'm not surprised that white supremacists would adopt Rorschach's personality. Like, there is something very appealing about that character. He is a psychopath that no one should emulate, but, there is something about that black and white sense of justice that appeals to everyone at some level. But you say, this is the evolution of his journal getting out. Is that ever brought up? Because I kept waiting for something about Rorschach's journal. I just kind of made the leap that, they somehow got it, but it's been discredited by the government, so no one knows. But I never heard that explicitly called out unless I missed a line or something.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about his journal mentioned. I just assumed it was covered up, which was kind of implied by Veidt at the end of that comic, is that it can't get out, although it seems to get to certain groups.
The last panel is that letter getting into the hands of the right-wing journal and them publishing it. So a certain group reads it and believes it. And that feels very 2019, right? The two Americas. The side that believes that government is, empowered to help people, and the side that believes they're there to oppress, take their guns, take their rights. I feel like this is great.
And just a year later, you'd have the rise of QAnon. It's amazing the kind of stuff that this just, I wouldn't say predicted, but it was really tapped into the times.
And remind me, Jacob, I haven't read the Watchmen comic since we did that movie review, but Rorschach had a bit of racism in him himself, right? He was not a all-good character. The people who really root for Rorschach kind of either don't fully understand the character or lean towards the character's darker impulses in certain ways.
He was very much a Travis Bickle character. He does say stuff about homosexuals in an unflattering way in that comic. I don't know if he ever brings up race, but again, it would be very easy to see him going off in that direction.
Yeah, I don't think he's a figure for the Klan. But yes, it has been co-opted by the Klan, in part because the Klan feels persecuted by the government. And I think other people can fall under that umbrella. But in this world, it's important to understand in Tulsa, if you have a Rorschach mask in your glove box, you are probably part of they call it the 7th Cavalry with a K. And that, to me, says KKK. You're probably part of a pseudo-racist, I don't know if I feel comfortable giving a terminology to it. Can we just say they're the new version of the Klan?
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. But I also think Rorschach stood for things that I could endorse. He's not a figure of racial politics himself, but has been that's how he's going to come back in this series. And I think it's really interesting that all of the Watchmen do find a way of filtering back into the story, but not as the same characters.
I mean, they'll call out appropriation later on and kind of just make that a reference. And I feel like today, dude, I love the Punisher. He's just killing druggies and everything. It's great. But when a cop is wearing a Punisher badge or a patch on there, no, that's a bad sign to me. I don't like how that Punisher symbol has been co-opted, people taking it way too seriously. So yeah, I definitely, whatever Rorschach was, he has been co-opted to be something worse.
And I think it's interesting too that cops have had to hide, that being a cop after this event called a White Night, well, basically Christmas Eve, a bunch of these Rorschach people went and shot up the Tulsa police, and now you don't tell people you're on the police force. You get a bandana or you get a panda mask or something like that, and you just never mention to people that you're part of this, that you have essentially become, a crime fighter. You're Batman when you become a police officer.
And let's face it, that's not a great idea. I get really nervous at the fact that I could see this happening. I could see police saying we need to be defended, and yet the idea of anonymous law enforcement is so frightening.
And I could see them going the way of Pirate Jenny and Red Scare. Like, yeah, you do think of yourself as a superhero, going back to cops who like to wear that Punisher symbol. Like, you are the superhero, and if you're in a Watchmen story, like, it's never good to be a superhero. That's not a thing you should achieve for. That's a criticism.
It's a good thing that we have Angela as our focal character. I think it could be really hard if we were to pick Don Johnson, Looking Glass, any of the other characters. I feel like, there's things in their closet, literally and figuratively, that make us uncomfortable and really endorsing what they do. If there's someone close to a true hero, it is Angela Abar, our star, Regina King, who was kind of having a moment at this time. I want to point out she had just won the Oscar for Beale Street. She had just won an Emmy for American Crime, and she was nominated for 7 Seconds. She was all over the place, and she did win the Emmy for this as well. I think she's terrific in this.
Yeah, she's really good at this part. She has the superhero persona, Sister Knight. It's kind of weird that cops not only put on masks, but have full superhero outfits in certain cases. It seems like the patrolmen just have to wear scarves, but
the detective's gonna be cool superheroes.
Yes, exactly. And so she's gonna put on this, like, leather frock that is like a habit and one of those skirts that nuns wear, and put on a mask that covers up to her nose and airbrush her eyes black.
Yeah, a really badass nun. Why is that? Somebody's going to theorize that she was punished by nuns at an orphanage. We'll find out she just really loved blaxploitation. She saw the right movie at the right time.
Much like Will, like there's connections to be made.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And we'll make those connections. They have a lineage between them. But as we get started here, she's at a career day presenting herself as a baker. She has an adoptive son in his elementary school. It's time for the parents to come in and say what they do. And we get the first of many egg symbolism. She's trying to make mooncakes and pass herself off as a baker. And we have this snotty little kid in the back saying, "Did you pay for your bakery for red predations?" And I just want to say this movie is like, it's cavernous. You could just go deep into what all of these things mean, or you could just roll on out through it. But I really love to think about the idea that Robert Redford, instead of Bill Clinton, could have been our president in 1993 and created a welfare state where red predations are like food stamps.
Yeah, I loved looking, the first time I saw this, just catching that poster in the background. It's like, the best presidents of America, Washington, Lincoln, Nixon, and Redford. Like, just those kind of Easter eggs in the background is a lot of fun.
I thought it would just be an Easter egg, and then they make a bigger deal out of Redford being president and draw it to your attention. But I like how it's just dripped in here at the beginning. Yeah, there's great world building going on.
And there's a lot of contradictions with Angela, like, as we meet her and go on her role, because as she's doing this demonstration for cooking these mooncakes or moon pies, whatever she calls them, there's this subtext about separation. You got to separate that colored yolk from the whites in that egg. And like, I think that is going to be her struggle. It's definitely her grandfather's struggle is like, yeah, can you get along or do you have to be separate? But then we get that contradiction. Like, we're going to find out she has a white son. So like, there's things to discover on this journey.
Yeah, I don't think that she has conflict about that. We'll find out her story, and I think it would be episode 8 is where we get the most flashbacks to tell who she is. But yes, I think it's a moment of pause. And again, some people might just scream woke that it's a black woman with white children. Why that is, well, I'll just go ahead and jump to it. On White Night, her white partner was killed. And so she took the opportunity to adopt. She herself has spent time in an orphanage. She lost her parents at an early age. I think that made her feel like she could reach out, even though she never wanted to be a parent, and take on this role. But those children don't know what she really does. We will see her get a text, and she will run off to her bakery, Milk and Hanoi, not Milk and Honey, because she is, we'll find out, from Saigon.
The 51st state, Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. She ends up spraying her eyes black, putting on that leather habit and crucifix and speeding off in a really cool car to Nixonville, which is sort of, redneck trailer park country kind of thing. That Nixon, let's not forget, established in that comic book. For 30 years, he was the president, and it's only because Ozymandias pulled strings in 1993 that Redford was able to beat him. Although I guess it seems like Gerald Ford was an interim president in between.
Yeah, he had a few years in there.
Nixon still screwed up and did some kind of Watergate and probably had to be removed from office because he was just that paranoid. And she gets our subject. She's trying to think who could be behind this cop shooting. She wrestles up a likely suspect and brings him to one of our other major characters, Looking Glass, Wade Tillman, Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, if this series has a Rorschach analog, probably Looking Glass. He's the one who seems most comfortable behind his mask. He wears it when at home alone.
He's going to pull it up to eat beans. That's a Rorschach thing, to eat beans in your mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it had been so long since I'd seen the series, I actually thought he was Rorschach. And then, again, I had to go back and read the comic and watch the Zack Snyder movie and prep of all this. I have everything straight now. But yes, if you're just a casual viewer, I don't know, it's a question worth asking. Do you really need to know all of that? These details are really neat. It's like I said, it's like a giant cave you can explore. But if you choose not to read the comic or even see Zack Snyder, are you going to get any of this? Are you going to get something out of this?
I think you might get lost when you get to the Ozymandias stuff, but no, so far, I don't know why it's raining squids, and I read that comic. I understand that comic, so it's a weird universe, but there's you're saying it's deep. Yeah, there's lots of things you could explore, and so at this point, you don't need to have read that comic or seen the film.
I agree. I think overall, just like Jacob said, anything with Ozymandias is going to just be lost on you. And a lot of stuff with Dr. Manhattan isn't going to hit home either. But I think that this series is far enough removed and waits long enough to bring in those elements that you can become invested in the series without knowing that stuff. And then when it comes in, maybe this will inspire you to go read it. Now, the counter to that is I feel like this series, especially its first few episodes, are so far removed from everything in there. I came in and I kind of wanted to see what happened to Night Owl and Silk Spectre and things like that. And because this first episode, we're not really getting any of that, it left me a bit cold.
Although I don't remember you being a big fan of The Watchmen.
I recommended it, watched it 4 times, and the more I watched it, the more I liked it.
You're a big fan of it.
I'm a moderate fan of Snyder's version, and I actually like Snyder's version more than the original comic because of the pirate stuff.
That's what I mean. I remember you being down on that comic book.
I'm up on the concept of the comic book. I'm just down on the actual reading of the comic book, and a lot of that has to do with the pirate stuff.
And as someone, I don't know, a Watchmen purist, I don't like that DC has done all those comics. I'm suspicious of anything with that Watchmen title. I'm extremely impressed so far. This world that they built, it feels like it's come out of what Alan Moore created. Yeah, the fact that we haven't met any of those legacy characters, that we'll eventually meet some of them, but that's not on my mind. I just like to see, the idea of Rorschach and how that's evolved. So I think this is respectful to that original source material, and it's a grabber.
Yeah, here's my impression, is that I feel like I'm watching a really great cop show. If I had just tuned into CBS and week by week, we have the Looking Glass guy that can tell when you're lying and he throws you in the pod. And then we have the Sister Knight that goes out and kicks ass. And John Johnson is the one that's going to sing show tunes and all this. This is a really charming group of cops. I just like them. It could be an episodic week by week, investigate this or that. I would tune in.
And I would just emphasize that Watchmen, that starts off as a detective story. It's a murder mystery at its heart. So yeah, this feels appropriate to kind of play with that and explore that path again, making it a cop show or a murder mystery as it will become.
And again, like, even though I'm saying Angela is who I'm rooting for, it's a really rough moment. Like, they take the suspect to the pod, and we see that looking glass, you know, he has some kind of multimedia trick. It's kind of like the Voight Comp thing in Blade Runner. He can test your vitals and know when you're answering simple questions about turtles being upside down or whatever. I actually know you're a racist. I know you're into this. You're a replicant.
Maybe we should just bring it up now, like, we're going to get a whole backstory with him, but does he have psychic powers? Did he get something from being in the vicinity of the squid at that age?
Yes.
Okay, he did. I wasn't sure, but it seemed like he did.
Yeah, I took it as that.
Yeah, that's where I land as well. And yes, that is what he brings to this group, is that he is going to be the one to vet that, yes, you've gotten the right guy, and now Angela is just going to, like, beat the guy until blood is coming out from underneath the interrogation door. Something I wouldn't normally endorse cops do, but because it's this actress, because we've had a few winning moments with her as a mother and as a crime fighter, and it passes by quick, but yeah, she's complicated. And soon they're running off to a farm and having a pretty good action scene. Night Owl isn't in this very much, but for some reason, the Force has kept his spaceship Archimedes.
No. We'll find out towards the end that they used the plans of the original. That's why Looking Glass knows how to fly it at the end, is they replicated that.
Okay.
I thought it was the original one, too, until we get to the end there.
Well, my point is, like, this is the only real Night Owl we'll get. Silk Spectre will also have a pet owl that I presume she took over after, Night Owl died, probably? I'm just going to fill in blanks and say, probably died of old age. He looked unhealthy in the comic in 1985. He was middle-aged and not in shape, so probably 30 years later is gone. And this is the only real Night Owl we're going to get in the series. Everyone else has a much more pronounced role from the original Watchmen team.
Yeah, it's action-packed, but there's also, again, that appropriate grim humor. Like, it's a cattle ranch, and the 7th Cavalry pulls out, like, this huge, like, 50 caliber Gatling gun and is just reducing all this cattle to ground beef as they're trying to kill these cops.
Yeah, this is something that I don't think you get from Alan Moore. When you read that comic book, I don't know, Arnie, if this is maybe what you bump up against, but what I don't like is, like, those dialogue bubbles. Sometimes there's more words than picture, and he just can go on and on and on. And what I really appreciate about this series is, yeah, it'll just have action moments like this. It'll grab you. It will work in the kick-ass way Zack Snyder tried with that movie, but I really didn't feel like it was a good marriage of, like, his action style and Alan Moore's brooding philosophical takes on deconstructing superheroes. This is a much more balanced take on something that's smart and yet also zippy and fun.
And I'm enjoying Don Johnson in here as her boss, Judd Crawford. I feel like the two actors have a good rapport with each other on screen, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing more of that going forward. So when the episode is closing down and we see Don Johnson hanging from a tree, I was let down, no pun intended. I was like, I wanted more of him in the series.
Yeah, I mean, you say let down, but to me, that's a grabber. That's like oh my God, I thought I knew where we were going. And yeah, he was doing some cocaine. Yeah, he was being a little bit manic there at the dinner table. But you're right, I just really liked him and trusted him. And to see that he's dead, and soon they're going into his closet and there's a Klan robe, yeah, all of this is like head spinning and really challenges the idea that you can have a sense about who a person is based on introductory material.
Yeah, because him and his wife are having dinner with Angela and her kids and husband. Like, they seem like great friends. So it's going to be a big shock that he dies, but it's going to be an even bigger shock when you find out about the skeletons in his closet, because we've seen, like, he went to Black, Oklahoma. He was putting up with it. He was listening.
It's also a shock who did it, right? Because, yeah, Angela gets this call. First, she has a sex scene because it's an HBO show, and we got to do that every episode. But then she goes to this tree, and there's Lou Gossett. He had been earlier hanging out outside her bakery, and, you know, he had a line of like, do you think I could lift 200 pounds? And here's the proof of it. Suddenly he's standing underneath that rope. And yeah, it looks like somehow this 105-year-old man found a way to kill, healthy, virile Don Johnson.
Which, I mean, I don't believe. It just seems unbelievable. And so I think that that's a mystery, but I don't believe him when he says he did it. Now, we're going to find out at the end he did do it, but I don't buy it.
I don't think anyone would. It's the murder mystery.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something that would be true, or I don't like that he did it. What do you mean?
No, it doesn't sound like something that would be true. I just don't believe him. And the way this was made, this was done like an old school TV series. Damon Lindelof brought a crew together, they shot a pilot, showed it to HBO, and HBO then decided whether or not to take this to series. They saw this, they decided, okay, take it to series. So the rest of the whole series was filmed much later, totally different production crew and things. But we ask this a lot of times when we do these TV series. Would you return after night one? And it sounds like, Stuart, you're super enthused about this. You want more of this immediately. Jacob, how are you feeling? After night one, night two is must-see TV?
Yeah, good cliffhanger, and they've created a world that I really want to spend more time in.
And I'll just also add, it's a cool bookend. We started with white people lynching black people, and now we end with a white man lynched by a black guy. Yeah, it's just so well written. It's just so well constructed.
And to me, it just wasn't Watchmen enough. I wanted some more connection to that original one. I really missed the setting of New York City. I loved that about the original one, and here, being in Tulsa, I understand it's really important for the racial stuff that they want to put forward, but it just wasn't that visually exciting of a locale to me. And so after night one, I didn't hate it, I didn't mind it, but I wouldn't have felt compelled to tune back in for episode 2 were we not reviewing it for this.
Wow, okay. I literally wrote down, I don't know how you could not.
Well, Arnie just told you.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't want to know more. There have been so many things, from the idea of Nixon trailer parks to, who killed Don Johnson. There's just so many things that I'm wanting to know and spend more time with.
And to me, Watchmen was a lot about the characters in the idea. And so by taking the gambit of we're not going to bring any characters back for this first episode is a gambit that didn't pay off for me. It let me down that this wasn't more connected to the Watchmen of old.
Well, Hooded Justice is here, and he is the original one, the one that kicked off the Minuteman that became the Watchmen. But did you understand? You do understand by the second episode that Lou Gossett Jr. is that child that rescued the baby that was smuggled out of Tulsa, because we have a very intricate, and I just love the way that the show is edited. We have this whole montage of, it's almost like a Rube Goldberg, of watching a typing pool create this propaganda that becomes a leaflet dropped on soldiers in World War I and gets black soldiers to think whether it's wise to serve a country that treats them so bad. Watch it follow all the way to old man holding it underneath the lynching tree.
Yeah, I was really wondering, where is this going as we start off in Germany? I'm like, are we going to get Nazi superheroes they're going to introduce, and it's all going to get intertwined and catch up to the present? But no, I love how this just goes along with reinforcing all those themes. Why are you fighting for this army that despises you, doesn't actually care about your rights? It's going to be wills. There's going to be talk of passing things down through your DNA, and we're going to see the father then pass this down to his son, and Will's going to carry that when he's a cop. Like you've said, Stuart, so far the writing is top-notch.
And I feel like episode 2's always, you look at all greats, Twin Peaks as well, it's more or less about just reminding people what was done in the first episode. I don't feel like a whole lot is learned here. We will just see Angela spend more time verifying who this man is that killed a cop that she loved, someone that she had dinner with regularly and considered a close friend, a man that came to her bedside when she was shot on White Night and was injured himself. She never had any suspicions of his character, and now she's going to, because she takes this journey.
Yeah, and just like you had to search in a closet in that graphic novel, yeah, she's going to find those secrets in a hidden closet compartment in this as well.
What does it mean? I mean, I'll ask, just having seen the whole show, what does it mean that he has a Grand Dragon robe? It doesn't look like it's 7th Cavalry. It doesn't look like it's Cyclops. It's not the sci-fi conspiracies that come out of the Klan. what I heard Don Johnson say is that my grandfather was in it, and I stay connected to him. I have a tie to him, even though I may not even politically agree with him. I want to hold on to this because it's a part of my history. And so I have to hide this so that nobody sees it, but I'm not going to throw it away.
Yeah, and we hear a lot of debate about tearing down statues, and that's our legacy and our history. Well, what does that legacy and history really stand for, though? Like, what does that say about your legacy? Like, these are, I'll be polite and say tricky questions. I don't think they're tricky, but people want to debate them. And so, yeah, for me, it seemed like he was more connected to the destruction of Tulsa in 1921 through his legacy, through his grandfather. And that's, yeah, this KKK robe had to do with that, not the Cyclops conspiracy.
Actually, what I read into this, and it's all inference because it's not stated outright, but when we see the head of Cyclops, and we find in the past Cyclops was a KKK bit, I think when they have the gathering of the leaders of, be it the 7th Cavalry or Cyclops, it's all basically the same organization, I think that Judd Crawford would have been at that meeting at the end when they all came together for that senator if he hadn't been killed.
Yeah, the senator makes it sound that way when we get to this conspiracy later on, that Judd was there to control the police and the senator was there to control the 7th Cavalry, and that he may have been in on it. To me, it's much more of a commentary about white privilege. And again, what does your legacy actually mean? Like, did you actually earn what you had, or did something horrible get you that? And so, yeah, whether or not he was part of Cyclops ends up not being that important, I don't think.
Oh, I think it's super important, but it's inconclusive. We can never know. And I think that's the really important detail, is that as much as we might want to peg and label people, good, bad, evil, racist, not, I don't really know. He could have been undercover. I actually read it the opposite, Arnie. I feel like it was his wife that was really involved, and he had no idea. And that he, again, because he has such good chemistry with our lead character, Sister Knight, and so supportive of her, in times when he didn't have to be. And he's very paternal. I do not believe that he would participate in an organization that would try to hurt her. But we can't know. And again, I think that's true to life. You know, I think when you look at your family history and what some of your relatives might have been involved in, it can be really heart-tugging to see, you know, how you feel about them personally and how they're politically aligned. And Angela's no saint. Again, in this episode, everyone's mad. You know, the body gets found. It gets cut down. Everyone's mad. Red Scare, which is, I guess, the Russian recruit that is just appreciating the pre-1985 Cold War and using that for his costume. He goes to Nixonville and, yeah, ties a rope around the big statue of Tricky Dick, is going to bring it down. She ends up beating people, too. She gets caught up in it, too. She starts by saying, calm, don't do it, we need to be methodical. But she can feel the anger in herself, the injustice, that one of these people knows, many of these people probably know and are protecting the people responsible for their chief's death. Ironically, it's none of them.
Yeah, exactly. In hindsight, this is all unprovoked police brutality because none of them were involved, and
yeah, her grandfather is really the one. And again, why he did it, all of this, it's very nuanced and complicated. And I think that, yes, it's easy to react emotionally about something passionately. We can be moved to anger and violence very quickly. But giving those labels about who's right and wrong and what it all means, yeah, not easy to do. Even if you're looking glass and you can tell when people are lying.
Yeah, and Watchmen is not about clear morality. It's quite the opposite.
But she knows that there's something about Will that she needs to find out. Who is this guy? What is he capable of? She had him drink a cup of coffee at her bakery, chained him up there, and then ran to this community center. Greenwood, the Black Wall Street that was torn apart in 1921, has rebuilt, and there is a whole community center, albeit always picketed by white people out front, you know, saying bad things about Redfordations. But she goes there and has his DNA analyzed and proves, without a doubt, yes, that he was connected to that massacre and that he is her grandfather. And when she goes to bring him, she's going to arrest him. He's got friends in high places, literally. A magnet comes down and he flies away with her car.
He likes to claim that he's Dr. Manhattan. Did you ever, to me, that said, I didn't think he was Dr. Manhattan, but that told me to be suspicious of other people that might be Dr. Manhattan. But did you ever buy Will as Dr. Manhattan?
Well, the line's important. What she says is more important. She's thinking, how did this man lift this cop, that even put him in a noose, forcibly, presumably against his will? And his only answer is, I could be Dr. Manhattan, who can do anything, right? Who can be in a wheelchair and still with a flick of his hand do this. And what she says is that no, Dr. Manhattan can't take the form of a person.
Which tells me to look for Dr. Manhattan in the form of another person.
I agree with you, Jacob. I was suspicious of Dr. Manhattan. I did not believe that he would just remain on Mars this entire time.
No, but did you think that it was Cal? I mean, I don't know how you would conclude that.
I never suspected Cal for anything, no.
No, he's too minor a character. I didn't think he was. He was too passive a character. When people are coming, Angela has to give him a gun. So I didn't really picture him as being omnipotent and all-powerful.
But again, the episode's over, and again, I just like bookending. Like, it started with a leaflet falling out of a plane. Now that leaflet is falling out of a flying car being hauled away by some UFO, and that's all she's got to go on. And we're on to a new character when we get to episode 3.
Jean Smart. This is an actress I really like. I'm not a big Designing Women fan. My wife is. But she's done a lot of work since then that I really appreciate. And she just had a TV show that got canceled when Discovery bought HBO. But it was a TV series called Hacks. She was amazing in that show. I loved that show.
Yeah, she got a lot of praise. A lot of awards, I think, she won for that.
She did. I am so devastated that show got canceled. But she was a happy presence for me, A, just as an actress, and B, because she is Laurie Blake. She is a returning character, something I've wanted for 2 episodes now.
Yeah, I think this actress is great. Like, this introduction of her calling Dr. Manhattan to his Mars phone to leave a message. Like, as soon as that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is Laurie. This is really cool. Like, now we're bringing in the old characters. I love this world. And like, now, I don't know, this to me was a treat. It was the right moment to bring someone from those comics in.
But she's not the same Laurie. Again, Laurie was a Watchman. She did put on an outfit, a skimpy one at that, and like went and fought crime. She was there in Antarctica at the end of that comic book. That she is now persecuting anyone that would do such a thing, that she's had such a hard turn, it can only be the heartbreak, right? Because Dr. Manhattan broke her heart and left and went to Mars, she now wants to persecute every superhero. It's not about the law. I don't believe that it's because she's impelled by the FBI and the government to do this. She just, again, it's in her joke. It's almost a threat. Keep in mind, her father, the comedian, told jokes that weren't funny, that were really, violent threats. She tells a joke about, a god that would smite Ozymandias, that would smite Dr. Manhattan, and is killed by a simple woman throwing a rock. She aims to be the person to take down gods.
We're not going to get a whole lot of backstory for her, how she ended up doing this, but I could see the character going this direction. Like you said, her father is the comedian. I was getting comedian vibes from her performance. She's so jaded and cynical at this point. I love that she's busting rich assholes that want to run around the town in costumes.
And getting booed for it. I mean, again, like, we see her stage a bank heist, and some poor fake Batman comes in with a smoke bomb, and the crowd's with him. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to stop bank robbers. What's so wrong with that? I think the audience might feel that way, too. If you didn't have any love for her as Silk Spectre, I think you might really see this character as antagonistic and one that you're rooting against.
That was a funny scene as her introduction as an FBI agent, because that guy so clearly throws the smoke bomb and then runs into the smoke, and just how lame a Batman could really be in real life if you don't have somebody like Tim Burton doing all the editing and stage direction.
And so then we have this guy Keene, and again, I'll bring us back to Alan Moore. His dad was the one in 1977 that passed the first laws that basically, they were the Sokovia Accords, right?
The Keene Act.
Yeah, stop superheroes from taking the law into their own hands. We don't like the idea that they are superseding our laws. And now his son is here and a senator in Oklahoma with ambitions for the White House. And he's going to send Laurie and some little toady guy named Dale to go to Tulsa to see if a masked vigilante, namely the Rorschach gang, is behind that killing. Everyone just presumes it has to be 7th Cavalry that killed Don Johnson. But all the characters kind of come together when it's time to bury Don Johnson, and Angela is up there singing the last roundup, and it's kind of an emotional moment, and all of a sudden there's a suicide bomber who has dug a tunnel to the nearby mausoleum and is ready to kill the Senator King. He's calling him a race traitor.
And you can't shoot him because that bomb's hooked up to his heart rate, and if that stops, the bomb goes off. Or will it? That's the risk Laurie's willing to take.
Yeah, I do love that Laurie shoots him and is like, they all say that, but none of them really go through the trouble to do that, because it is such a comic book cliche or an action movie cliche. This is hooked up to my heart, and I'm like, how do you even do that? How does that even work? And so the fact that she didn't believe it and just shoots the guy made me smile.
Yeah. What I love, even though I think Jean Smart is someone that is a problem for the characters I like, but what I love about her, Laurie, is that she's just no nonsense. She's seen it all before, and she thinks it's all crap, and she doesn't want to buy into the myth making. You saw her earlier. She went through the precinct, and, she insists on calling Wade Mirror Guy. She won't even use his preferred looking glass name because she just wants to let him know, I think what you do is stupid.
Yeah, and again, this is a woman who knows the truth behind the squid. She knows the cover-ups that are going on. And that's why I think she is so much like her father, the comedian, because he cracked once he realized the joke that was going on in the world, and she knows that same secret.
And she really, again, if you like Angela, she's really antagonistic to Angela. She's out to get her. She makes a point when Angela is, Angela's tried to be sneaky. I'm not a cop. I'm a baker. She's tried to play that line, but she gets busted. She's there with the goggles on, looking at the tunnel, and there's Laurie with the coffee being like, okay, I know who you are. Let's just get real here.
Wait, there's another scene. When she goes to dump, she took that wheelchair from Will and, took a blowtorch to it, cut it up in pieces, and she's dumping it. And there is a very thin man standing there watching her in all spandex, and there is a chase scene where he uses oil to slide down a sewer grate. I'm assuming that's Petey, Laurie's partner. This will never come up again. They'll say, investigate this belt that he left behind. I guess he reported this back to Laurie?
Yeah, what was he? The eel or something? Because he's slippery.
Lube dude is what I think he gets referred to as.
But yeah, what was this? I was left with that question when we reached the end, because I honestly, the whole time I'm watching the series finale, I'm waiting for him to show back up and for him to matter.
Yes.
It was the one question mark where I didn't even realize it was supposed to be Petey. I had to Google that in order to find out the fan theory. But yes, I was like, what was that all about?
Tell me the fan theory. It's Petey?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If you're watching Jean Smart, she didn't want to go with the whole team. She picked the most ineffectual dude he runs the slide projector. He's not going to get in my way, is really the way that I see her treating him. But he's wearing the mask, and he's all up on her history, and he's a fanboy. He's starstruck to be working around her. And there's this kind of funny scene where, she's been carrying around this metal suitcase. What's in the suitcase? It's a giant Dr. Manhattan blue dildo. And rather than use that dildo, she's like, all right, I'll go screw Petey. I think Petey's into it for the sex. And I think that lube dude, it's a skin-tight silver suit. I just think it's an Easter egg. Obviously, I talked about this being cavernous. It's a mystery that we can debate forever and never know. But yeah, I just think he's a kinky guy that loves superheroes and wants to be one. And this was a moment where he was spying on Angela for his crush and also coming up with his new identity that's covered in lube.
By the way, they're staying at the Black Freighter Inn, the name of the ship in that comic book you hated, Arnie.
Oh.
But yeah, so he is like Night Owl, her old lover, because that was kind of his old thing. He was impotent until he put on that costume and beat up some bad guys and could get hard again. So this is why I wondered, was there a season 2 planned? Were we going to get more Petey in his spandex?
I'm sure they'd bring him back if they ever do. But I mean, again, it's just a joke. I mean, and I think that this episode has a dark sense of humor. It's sprinkled throughout the series, but in this one particularly, I think there's comedy in pairing him up with the woman that hates all superheroes. And yeah, that they just always keep cutting back to her rolling her eyes not buying what he's trying to co-opt. And the episode does end, again, book ending. If it starts with her kind of telling this joke about a woman that throws a rock at a god, this feels equally threatening that she looks up at Mars and suddenly there's a car being thrown down at her as she comes out of the phone booth.
I have to admit, I thought it was Dr. Manhattan responding to the voicemail.
I did too. I think that's the great thing about it. It plays one way. The fact that the episode's called She Was Killed by Space Junk, I kind of laughed because I kept waiting for something to fall from space. And yeah, because she had just hung up the phone with Dr. Manhattan or the answering machine to him, I took it the same way, Arnie, that he threw a car down from Mars or something for that joke.
That's why she's laughing, is because it's a perfect response to her veiled threat that I'm going to get you. Truthfully, she has no way of getting him.
Which I thought that was setting up a big thing, that she was going to be the bricks. You know, that was going to play out somehow in the end. I don't know if it actually does. She actually doesn't seem to be that important.
Yeah, but if we're looking at that, neither does Angela.
I mean, I don't know how you want to characterize it. There's a lot of red herrings, I suppose. To me, to not have things turn out not as I expected is not something to be chagrined about unless it's stupid, right? If they do something stupid with the character, then I'll be mad. But yes, I agree. I have all kinds of impressions in these early episodes that do not come to pass when we get to the end. And Laurie's here too. It should be said, if we're jumping to the next episode, she's in the Greenwood thing, checking out the family tree. She hears it. It's her car. It's her car returning. Yes, I don't think it was Dr. Manhattan throwing it back.
No, they had to return it with the pills in it still.
Yeah, I think Lou Gossett Jr. is playing a game. I want granddaughter to know about me, but I'm being coy. I'm teasing it out. And so he returns her car that he escaped in with his mystery pills in the glove box. What are these pills? It will be, a tease throughout this episode that she's got to find out what he was taking and what it could be. And both she and Laurie are going to get into that car and go and find out the only place that has flying cars, Lady True and her Millennium Clock. Hong Chow, another actress that's kind of having a breakout in the last couple years. She had a Oscar-nominated memorable role in Downsizing. I thought she was the best actor in The Whale. She was the caregiver.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, she was very good in that.
Yeah, she pops up in lots of things and always really impresses me. I had forgotten that she was the bad guy. I had forgotten about this character in the 4 years since I watched the original run. But she is someone definitely that we should be paying attention to by episode 4.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the previous Watchmen, the fact that she has bought out the Veidt Corporation, she's even richer, that tells you beware, because Veidt wasn't a good guy. He had evil plans in that Watchmen comic. And so, yeah, I'm suspect of her because she has taken over that corporation.
One of the things about this series that's both cool and frustrating in equal measure is that I'm learning right here, each episode is going to be introducing somebody new who's major or focusing a lot on a character in a way that feels very much like an issue of a comic book. Like if you had a whole bunch of individual issues that together formed an arc. And so I'm grooving to the pattern of it now of seeing, okay, what I thought was going to be Angela's entire series based on episode 1 is getting more and more full of different characters, and we're not going to have that focus on her. So this episode is going to be quite a bit of Lady True's episode.
Yeah, it feels very much kind of constructed the way that comic was, where, yeah, each issue kind of focused on a character and then that story all came together. The fact that there's 9 episodes here, maybe I'm just getting into numerology, but one of the famous things about the Watchmen comic is the use of the 9-panel grid. It does feel like they paid attention to the construction of this series.
Yeah, sorry to deflate that. This was going to be a 10-episode series, and as Lindelof got to episode 6, he realized he was just reaching the end, and he didn't want to give a full filler episode, and so he cut it from 10 to 9.
Well, there you go. A good coincidence, then.
Yeah, but again, that shouldn't stop you from coming up with your theories. Again, I think that this invites cult thinking. This is a cult TV show, and again, we could get all lost in the details. The fact that this episode starts with her buying this egg farm or whatever, and again, eggs being the metaphor throughout this, I think it's only really here to demonstrate her mastery of cloning. that she can actually come to a couple and take their farm away within 3 minutes, that she's going to be able to convince them to sell everything that they have and the 40 acres that surrounds their property. And that's because 10 years ago, they're a childless couple. They tried at a fertility clinic that she owned, and she was able to take that material and make them a baby. Like, there, you want this baby?
And I thought at first when she's doing, like, you have 3 minutes, like, just doing the tough negotiation thing. But the fact that as soon as she buys it, something crashes on that land, and I don't think that ever comes up again. Is that a reference to Superman landing or something? And the fact that they're out in, prairie land, Oklahoma here, I don't know, it's probably a lot like Kansas.
You'd think that, yes, what she really wants, what she's trying to do, she knows the meteor is coming, and she has 3 minutes to make the deal before they are not going to sell because they're going to want that meteor.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
The meteor is a total red herring.
Oh my gosh, okay.
That's the game that's being played here, is that things you think are really important, directions that you are spun towards, end up not being. Yeah, Lube Man ends up being an uncompleted joke. I mean, I like playing around in caverns. I don't feel like this thing has so many loose ends. I don't think it has many loose ends at all, but I do think that it will send you down pathways that are fun to explore. And if they don't end up being part of the master villain's ultimate, what is the Millennium Clock? Yes, that feels like something really scary when we see it. Yeah, it makes me think that, yes, that she's going to pull something. She wants to save the human race. And we know that when Veidt tried to save the human race, it meant killing 3 million people. So yes, I don't trust her. She's all smiles. She's all charm. But yes, she is a very menacing pixie villain. Also interesting that she's Vietnamese, that she and Angela can talk. And Angela's like, I know Will's here. And they're like having that whole conversation while Laurie is looking around, not sure what's being said. She's more interested in the fact that there is a big golden statue of someone that looks a whole lot like Ozymandias. And this is probably the time to talk about it. In every episode so far, we've had sort of an absurdist sketch with Jeremy Irons, but I think this is the point where we now really understand who he is, what he's doing, even if we're not exactly sure how he's going to connect with this storyline on Earth.
The Ozymandias stuff is so out of left field and so bizarre. I actually really loved it. I'm like, yeah, this would be like a really weird subplot in some comic book writer that came from that British invasion in the 80s and 90s where they did really trippy stuff. But like, yeah, this feels almost alien to Watchmen, which is by design a very grounded. There's like one guy with the superpowers and the rest are just normal people.
Yeah, it's some odd stuff. Now, I like Jeremy Irons as an actor as well. And so seeing him as Ozymandias, again, it's nice to have a familiar face. It's nice to... I don't even think initially I knew who he was or where he was.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And it took an episode or two for me to really click into what was going on. But it was somewhat frustrating that, yeah, at the end of each episode, we'd go and have this separate thing that I'm like, I know it's going to tie into the main plot eventually. I have to be patient with it. But it was always a little bit ridiculous with the servants giving him a horseshoe instead of a knife to cut the cake. I'm like, okay, he's surrounded by clones. These clones obviously aren't very intelligent. It's not very good cloning.
It feels like a British sitcom kind of crammed into this American superhero thing. And I delighted by it. I mean, I love watching Jeremy Irons naked at a typewriter, hammering out a play to tell us the tragedy of Dr. Manhattan. What does it all mean?
Like, what is Crookshanks doing to him? And then it pulls back. She's just massaging that thigh.
Yeah. And that he has no qualms. And this is important to realize. Veidt has no remorse. If you think that he felt like it was a sacrifice to kill 3 million people in New York in 1985, he's just killing these clones. Who cares? I could just fish them out of a lake, spin them in this little conveyor room, and they'll just be, my next people. And I'll have a play where one dies right there on stage. Who cares? He has so little love for life that hasn't changed in all of his imprisonment.
Yeah, he seems to be really motivated. He wants to get credit for that genocide that he committed. Like, that really hurts him that no one knows that he saved the world.
Yeah, he wants to be worshipped. And we'll find out that's a key reason why he is here, is that he makes a deal with Dr. Manhattan, who doesn't get a whole lot out of being worshipped, who wants to love. That comes from a different impulse than being idolized. But this character is narcissistic. Again, he calls himself the smartest man in the world. He's marketed himself as a line of action figures, and he's the one that created nostalgia, too.
Yes, the perfume.
Yeah, well, perfume and lots of other things, but the pills that Will is taking that encapsulate his memories, that was his that became Lady True's. Like she adopted it.
It was a perfume formula in that comic.
Oh, is that what it was? It wasn't pills. So she took a perfume and turned them into memory medicine. Wow. But yeah, in general, I always appreciated, without understanding what it meant, that we would have these comic moments in each episode with Jeremy Irons. But around this time, this is when we start to realize that he's calling it a prison. He is firing dead clones up in a catapult, and they kind of just disappear in the sky. There's a certain point where they reach and suddenly they're gone. They vaporize. He knows that there's something beyond the barrier and is trying to create a spacesuit to go out and explore it.
Yeah, I like how this is dribbled out. It's like a 5-10 minute segment in each episode. And he'll put on this play of Dr. Manhattan getting his powers, and it's really gruesome as he burns one of those clones, but then he takes the watch and you see he's like studying the casing. And I like putting all those things together. Yeah, flinging those clones out. I'm like, okay, he's trying to escape something. Obviously, he's in some weird dimensional bubble or something right now.
One of the Phillips clones actually wears a mask and calls himself as the game warden. After he shoots a buffalo, he's like in trouble with this guy. And you think, oh God, this is what could have happened if in 1985, this was the guy that engineered the fake alien invasion that averted nuclear war. It should be said he did, in fact, accomplish some of what he wanted to do, but we at least averted war with Russia, right? That's the silver lining that comes out of his massacre of human life.
Yeah, his frustration is he wants to build utopia, and you get this nice little scene where you find out we're still gathering arms, even though there's still peace, we're still preparing for war, and he feels like a failure, and he's like, how do I fix this?
Yeah, this is his utopia. He chose this because it sounded perfect, and I think we hear, it's over the course of about 8 years that he's here, but we hear that by year 4, he starts to think of it as a prison, and that's when he starts building this suit. And eventually, when it's safe enough, after enough Phillips people have tried it on and frozen to death or whatever, he goes out into outer space, and we see that all those bodies are landing on the surface of a moon of Jupiter. Again, what I love about this series is that you can't just predict where it goes next. There is sort of a random sense of adventure that anything could happen in the next scene. We could go anywhere, that people could be wearing any kind of like a panda suit, whatever.
And yet I'm buying all this weird stuff on a moon of Jupiter way better than I'll ever accept Aquaman hanging out with Rorschach. All this stuff feels in spirit of that original Watchmen series, which has impressed me. Like, they haven't really deviated from that yet.
Agreed. Yeah, it has all of the characteristics of Alan Moore's writing without all the monologuing, which, again, was a real drag.
When they do monologue, they get mocked in this.
Yes, I agree. And so, just to kind of wrap this up, because it'll keep going throughout the episodes, but let's just kind of finish up since we're talking Ozymandias, that he basically is using the bodies to create a message, save me, daughter. He knows that there's a true satellite up in space, and that if he lets Lady True know that he's here, she will send something to rescue him. That is his ultimate plan for getting out of this prison.
But we don't know that daughter part yet. They haven't revealed that.
No, what we see is save me, D. And so, who is D, or what is D starting?
Dr. Manhattan?
I didn't think about that. I mean, my mind went to something like save me, dumbass. Something along those lines. But yeah, we just see save me and then the letter D. I also wonder, did he run out of time? Is D the end, or is there more being teased?
Right, because it gets yanked back. It should be said that the game warden pulls him back, puts him on trial. There's this whole kangaroo court with pigs squealing guilty and what have you. He's thrown into a dungeon, and we think that that's it for this escape plan until someone smuggles
the horseshoe.
Yeah, it was, help me out. It was like his crest or something. He wore a headband that had a horseshoe on it, right?
Well, no, the horseshoe is because that's what Phillips would bring instead of a knife, because the clones weren't smart enough. And so To me, this was very symbolic of him having to embrace the irrational to escape.
But when they bring him the horseshoe, he says, not yet. I don't need this yet. And so it's like he knows he's going to need the horseshoe at some point in time, but not when cutting the cake.
But anyway, let's get to, I think, a highlight episode. At least it was for me. Episode 5, we're going to dig into Wade.
Absolutely. My favorite episode of this whole series. Strong recommend for this episode.
Best episode.
He's looked like a cool character. He's kind of Rorschach, but he's against the Rorschach militias. What's he really about? It had to be pointed out to me in some of the extra materials. While people use him as a mirror, if you look in his life, he does not have any mirrors. In his bunker, he doesn't ever look at his reflection. He is a character that wants to look into the souls of others, but can't look into himself.
Which makes him Rorschach. That's what I love about him. He is this variation of that character. The mask kind of plays the same thing with the way light reflects around it, and you see whatever you want to see in there. We see Lori cleaning her teeth at one point, using it as a literal mirror.
Yeah, I like that. She says if you wear a mirror, people are going to use it.
Don Johnson, too, got dressed in his sheriff outfit by using it. It seemed just like a cute affect. It's this episode that really teaches us this is his security blanket, right? This is the thing that he goes to because he's terrified.
It's his tinfoil hat, literally.
Quite literally, in the way that we use that expression to talk about conspiracy nuts. He has a real reason to be afraid, though. This is a great opener when we see young Wade stepping off a bus from Tulsa to Hoboken, walking the Jersey boardwalk, and trying to convince people that they should be Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, obviously, we don't know that's him initially. We just see this as a flashback, and yeah, I didn't know he was Jehovah's Witness. I knew it was some kind of religious bit, but I didn't catch Jehovah.
Yeah, Watchtower's a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar. But this is just a fun vignette that opens it because he's there with the Bible group trying to approach some what look like bad kids to convert them. And this girl lures him into a fun house, and it's like his belief in the Bible only lasts as long as until a woman starts flirting with him and she starts taking off his clothes.
True to life.
Right. I mean, this is almost cliche at this point that sure, you're filled with stopping the sinners, but maybe you're there for other reasons. You know, like it was like that joke recently that got told in The Killer of just like, maybe you aren't there to shoot the bear. I love the fact, too, they've gone back to Alan Moore and the artwork. It's the Top Knot Gang, who was a big factor. I don't think they were a big deal in Snyder's film, but it was a part of the real chaos that was escalating in New York City, that there was this gang of dudes with top knots. They really actually channeled the look. Again, it's the era, 1985. This is in that timeline. And that means that, yes, this is the biggest difference between Snyder's movie and the comic book. They excised the idea that there was a giant squid that appeared in Manhattan that was meant to make people believe that we have to put down our nuclear weapons and worry about space aliens.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to get like an actual scene with the squid, because earlier we saw some squid rain. It's been mentioned that these squid phenomenons are still happening, but
he takes pictures of them too.
Yeah, and we're going to see the actual event here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a stunner. Again, like I'm not thinking about it anyway. When he's pulled in there, we're just so titillated by him about to get a blowjob, and then this woman runs away with his clothes, and he's, full of self-hate, self-loathing, looking into all these funhouse mirrors, and then bang, they're all shattering, and blood's coming out of his nose. He steps out of there, and everyone on the boardwalk is either holding their ears or dead. I mean, the camera pulls all the way back to Manhattan, and all those tentacles. Yeah, a triumphant cinematic moment.
Triumphant cinematic moment. Or a little beyond the budget of this series to pull off realistically. I've actually felt that was a cheap-looking shot.
But the squid is cheap. The squid is manufactured. The squid is a fabrication.
Yeah, but I meant the camera pull. It just didn't look great.
Oh, I really like that long pull back. I loved it.
Yeah, technically, I think this series is flawless. I also want to compliment here. It's a good enough place as any. Trent Reznor is doing the score, and I think that, yeah, it's familiar. I mean, it sounds like Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, it's Trent Reznor on autopilot doing what Trent Reznor does.
Well, okay, but I think it pairs with the material better than, say, Zero Dark 30.
Perhaps, but I'm thinking about The Killer again that we just reviewed, and Trent isn't stretching by any imagination here.
You hire Trent Reznor to be Trent Reznor. I get that. Like, I don't want him to bring in bells.
No, and I like Nine Inch Nails, so I like the score. But it's about as simple as that gets. It's not going to blow you away. I think he kind of stretched with Social Network. He went outside the box on Social Network and did it well. Here, he's way back in that box.
At one point, the score started, I'm like, oh, is this a Nine Inch Nails song coming on? Because there's a lot of great music, like pop songs that they use throughout this. And I'm like, oh no, that's the score. This must be a Trent Reznor score. And sure enough, it is.
And speaking of music, throughout this episode, they're going to be playing different versions of Careless Whisper, because that Wham song was what was playing in the funhouse when this guy experienced this attack. And he's haunted by it. He has PTSD. And so now, yes, he literally wears that mask, not just to conceal his identity, but if there is another squid attack, if the next time the big thing comes back and does another psychic blast, he believes this will protect him. He also has that bunker and sleeps down there. He lies to Jean Smart and says, I sleep well, but this episode confirms he lives in absolute terror.
Yeah, and we see what his cover job is, because all these cops, they can't say they're cops. Angela has her bakery, and he tells the truth. He discerns the truth for what the test marketers are saying. Like, you have this great commercial that feels like something out of a Verhoeven movie. Come back to New York. The only shrimp we're going to eat is calamari. Like, it's so perfect.
I love that Michael Imperioli is in that doing that too. It's like, in this world, there's still The Sopranos.
Yeah, the Broadway shows, no crime, hiking in empty Central Park. And yes, while the focus group leaves glowing comment cards, this guy can look through the one-way glass and say, no, they don't like being reminded that 3 million people died here, and they're not coming back to New York. I feel like, yeah, I don't know if this is the best episode, but this is definitely the best episode for this character. He kind of falls away from the rest of the series. And so the sadness is, I really like him. I don't think they use him very well in the rest of the show.
It's a shame because it works so well. Like, you see that trauma. He's holding group meetings and, like, yeah, I think, if anything, the series is about trauma and how you deal with it, and that's a huge theme here, but to see how broken Wade really is, like, it's such a great episode.
Yeah, I agree. It's a disappointment to me that this is basically his last hurrah in the series. He ceases to matter after this episode, and this episode cements him as my favorite character.
Yeah, he's great, but I mean, I guess I'm not going to lament it because I feel like they replace him with other great things. But yes, I really like the character, and if you get attached to him, this is the episode for you. Now, he's valuable for two reasons. One, he has an ex-wife, and I love her line that she's like, our marriage was you always thinking I was going to run away with your clothes and leave you there. She now works in some kind of cloning lab where if she doesn't get your puppy exactly right, we're just going to, Paul Verhoeven, you mentioned that. It does feel very RoboCop. We're just going to, do you want this puppy? Okay, I'm just going to throw him in the incinerator.
That might have been a joke in, like, Total Recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was harsh. I viewed it as a recycler, like maybe they were taking him back to genetic parts so that they could try again.
Yeah, but it's bad for the clone. That's all I can say. And maybe we shouldn't feel bad for clones, but
Ozymandias doesn't.
Yes, exactly. And so she's the one that can chemically look at these pills and know that they are nostalgia, know that they're somebody's memories. And so, we'll get more on that when he brings it to Angela again. And then, yes, after he leads this support group, the Friends of Nemo, as it's called, and they have, their own kind of AA mantras and all of that. There's this woman, Renee, that's hanging around afterwards. And she's the bait that's going to take him all the way back to the 7th Cavalry. That she is luring him to be a part of the Rorschach group.
Hey, she convinced me that I want to see Spielberg's Pale Horse. That won all the Oscars.
Instead of Schindler's List, he made one about the squid. And still has a girl in color with everything in black and white, apparently.
I loved that little detail.
Yeah, this is just, again, like, so much world build. What is it about lettuce? Somehow, that's a calling card for this group. There's just so many fine details. I feel like I could watch this show 5 times and always be finding new things.
Yeah, every time lettuce is on the screen, I'm writing it down, taking note, because I'm like, what is the deal with the lettuce?
Yeah. It must be, again, and is that lore that got written down on somebody's Post-it that never made it into the show? Probably, but I appreciate that level of detail. I appreciate that the world has been attuned to so specifically and with such care.
To me, the lettuce was just always linking back to the fact that in that first episode, the guy threw a head of lettuce at the copy shot, and so if it means anything more than that, I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about it, but when we find out about Will's memories and he goes after Frank, there's a whole thing with lettuce.
But this is where we find out conclusively that Senator King Jr. is not a race traitor. He is one of the 7th Cavalry, and he is there in a Rorschach mask when they finally get to what I think gets described as a burned out JCPenney.
Yes.
That's the hideout for this group. They have one of those teleportation. Is this the thing that turned Dr. Manhattan into Dr. Manhattan? This teleportation device? They're throwing basketballs through it.
No, this is how Ozymandias brought in the squid and does those squid rains every once in a while.
Yeah, it was a energy machine that turned Dr. Manhattan. We saw that in the play. He went back to get his watch and the door had to shut.
But yeah, he offers him squid pro quo, bring us Angela, and in exchange for that, we're going to let you see the truth. And he hits play on that button. He wants to know, I don't know how you could not want to know, what the truth is about all these squid attacks, how painful it is to realize you've lived all in fear over a big lie. The people that you've been trying to bust were right. Adrian Veidt, in 1985, made a video for President Robert Redford. He was anticipating that he could get that actor elected in 1993 and did. And he's telling him in this video, I faked the squid. And I keep doing it. The extra dimensional events are just a way of keeping people afraid and keeping that peace.
It sounds like Ozymandias had a whole plan that he laid out for Redford, and Redford just said, nah, it's good enough. I'm taking over now. But yeah, it felt like he had this whole thing to keep this peace going that he was pushed out of.
Well, what a horrible thing to find out. There are moments in the presidency when you step in and you're like, oh, by the way, we're dropping the nuclear bomb. What? They kept Truman out of that. He didn't know anything about that until the other guy was dead and he was sitting in the chair. I kind of wonder if it wasn't like that for Robert Redford. Hey, I just, got elected. Wait, what? That whole thing in New York wasn't real? I'm distancing myself from you. Later, we'll see that Ozymandias is like, he never calls.
Yeah. Was there ever any talk of trying to get Redford actually in this for a cameo?
From what I read, no, they never were going to try for that or anything.
He's a Marvel guy. He doesn't do DC, I guess.
But yes, Wade now has to deliver. All right, I now know the truth, such as it is, or I know the lie, and now I have to betray Angela. This is a real heartbreaking scene. He has to pull his mask down over his face to hide his shame after he gets her to talk into his cactus, and she gets arrested. He identifies the pills, and she says they're my grandfather's, and he's the one that killed Judd. That's all that Jean Smart needs.
Yeah, and so to escape, she's going to take that whole bottle of pills, which is going to lead into all of episode 6, which is going to, again, focus on Angela this episode, or is it focusing on her grandfather? It's kind of both, as we live his memories through her point of view.
Yeah, this is the episode that won the Emmy, just FYI. You can only submit one episode for writing, or you can submit multiple episodes, but only one is going to win. And this was the episode that was deemed the stellar example of short-form writing in a miniseries. And it is a good one.
Oh, for sure. As much as I liked the previous episode, this is the technical one that you put out there to get the awards. Really impressed with the editing and storytelling and, how they hop all over here.
Yeah, watching this episode, I could tell this would be the episode some people would absolutely love. And I found, okay, I just didn't like it as much coming on after the Wade episode. It's a little bit too artsy, a little bit too overdone for my tastes.
Okay. Because of the editing style?
Of the camera styles and the way that they keep replacing the actor who's playing Cal with Regina King.
It's like an episode of Quantum Leap.
Yeah. I think it's possible to get really confused here. I remember watching it week by week and not giving it my full attention. I feel like there were details that I was losing. But I don't think the gift that I can give this series is, even if you're a casual viewer, this is so expertly made that I think you can kind of just roll out on stuff that isn't making sense to you and still get what's going on here. Yes, Angela is learning what Hooded Justice really went through and starting the first superhero team. The episode actually starts with this show, American Hero Story, which is, again, I talk about how they take pot shots at television and, videos from the 80s and what have you. This is the myth. This is the one that gets it all wrong. This is the one that unmasked it, and it's Cheyenne Jackson, a light-skinned man. They have no idea, and the world has no idea, that Hooded Justice wears that noose and wears that hood because he was lynched by police officers, because he was a black man that was actually hung in a tree.
And yet American Hero Story somehow knows he was gay. I don't know how they knew that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because he was supposed to hide that. But you know how people are. They want to know that kind of gossip.
Yeah, and this was all hinted at in what Alan Moore originally wrote, if you read those long text pieces at the end of each issue.
Yeah, yes, let's just put it bluntly. Will had a lot on his shoulders. That, yes, we start with him joining the police force in New York. You said you wanted to leave Tulsa. This is the episode that does that. In 1938, he is one of 2 black officers on the force, and as he's getting his badge, they have the other black guy pinning it on him because, 1938, he's told, beware of Cyclops. And it isn't long before he sees that this police force is infiltrated with a racist organization that makes funny hand gestures that I guess kind of look like a Cyclops.
It kind of looks like that OK symbol that everyone was claiming was super racist anytime Trump made it.
Yep, that's what I was thinking too, Jacob.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's the Q, the QAnon.
It changes depending on the conspirator.
Oh, okay. I've heard that's the Q signal. That's when he's signaling to the Q people.
It is now, yes. Now that QAnon's around.
At any rate, this is a symbol to pay attention to. What happens is Will is walking his beat and sees a guy that we'll call Fred throw a firebomb into a Jewish deli. Seems pretty easy to book this guy, but the next day he's free. And the officers that put him away made that Cyclops gesture and then come for Will. They want to lynch him, or at least scare him to let him know that he is not allowed to, I guess, punish people in their organization.
I mean, it didn't start well even before this when he was at the ceremony graduating from the academy. Like, he gets passed by the white chief and the black one. That's when he whispers that beware of the Cyclops and puts that into his head that there's some great conspiracy out there. Like, it wasn't a good start from day one.
And so it's interesting, there was this journalist, a black journalist named June, who was there. She's kind of harsh on him. She's basically saying, I'm not sure you're the kind of person that should have a gun and a nightstick. Like, you're a fearful person. But she is the one that gets the idea. And I kind of wanted to spend some time unpacking this. She's the one that wants to make him white, right? After he is strung up in a tree and almost killed, he's cut down, he stumbles into an alley, and he stops a mugging. And from that point forward, he thinks that maybe, because he gets good press with that, I should continue to work this way. I'm more effective in enforcing the law as Hooded Justice than I am when I'm a beat cop. But the thing is, and the reason why American Hero Story has it portrayed by Cheyenne Jackson is he puts white on his eyes. He does not let people know he's a black man because they wouldn't root for him.
They say the line, white man in a mask is powerful, a black man in a mask is frightening.
Yeah, I don't know what's to wonder. I think she's right on with her assessment here, is that he goes out as a black man doing this and they know he's black. He's going to get lynched again.
Well, I guess what my curiosity is, why does she endorse it at all? It seems like she was very much against him being a law enforcer, that she saw him as unstable.
Yeah, and she says you have some kind of anger in you, and this is the way for you to get it out. She's like, you are serving justice, and it's helping you get all that anger out, so maybe do this 2 or 3 times and get it out of your system. That's how I took it.
Okay, that makes sense. If you can get this rage out, maybe you can go and be functional. And instead what happens is he gets recruited to a superhero organization and has an affair with a man.
And did she know he was secretly gay? Because she is so against it when this guy shows up and tries to recruit him to the superhero organization. I couldn't tell what she knew and when she knew it. Did she know he was going to cheat on her, or did she just really not like the super team idea?
Yeah, I think she didn't trust a rich white guy, and we'll see what Captain Metropolis does when Hooded Justice brings his conspiracy to him. He's like, no, we don't do that kind of thing. So I think she was looking at it from a race angle where they're never going to really respect you. They want you because you're the first, and they think you're white. They're never going to respect you being black.
That's a laugh line for her, is that he comes there saying, we think you're the cop feeding Hooded Justice information. It would never occur to us that you could actually be Hooded Justice. And so, yeah, I think she just doesn't like this guy. And then, yeah, when he's handing him the forms and their fingers touch, she's maybe noticing the flirting that comes. Her husband stops coming home on a regular basis, and she doesn't know what he's doing for lots of reasons. I would say all of the above, Arnie. I don't know that she knew instantly that her husband was having an affair, but by the time that she's ready to go back to Tulsa with her son Marcus, she's just done with all of it. And I think it's curious. Captain Metropolis, that's the name of this leader, he's like, you can never tell the others your secret. That's both secrets. They don't know that he's black, and I don't think they're supposed to know that they're gay, but how interesting that in 2019, that's the salacious thing that everyone's tuning in for. That's the thing people want to hear about. The gossip is that eventually came out. But him being black never did. It's also interesting, too, that, like, again, this group, they're not racist, but they're kind of indifferent. How about that? They're indifferent to the suffering of African Americans. They stand for bank ads that use demeaning pictures of black criminals to tell you that they're going to protect their bank. When this guy gets word of a plot that, a whole theater of black people turned on each other and attacked each other, why would we care about that?
They want to go after Moloch, who, if you remember him from the original story, just looks like low-level criminal, like magician with weird, like goblin, weird-shaped ears or something. And like that made me laugh. Like they really are just playing a role as these rich white guys posing for cameras, and he actually wants to do something.
Yeah, and they'd mentioned Moloch earlier, saying, I think it was in that American Hero story that these people brought down, and they list a whole bunch of people, and one of them is Moloch.
Another thing that's interesting about that story is they present the idea that he smashes through a window of a grocery store and stops a stick-up of all these guys, and then we'll see the truth of it actually is Will, as Hooded Justice, went into this warehouse and shot up a bunch of Cyclops people, and then as he was coming out, he winds up in this grocery store. It's the shopkeeper that chases him out through that window, that he was not seen as a hero at all. I really dig how, there's just a few moments, but I really dig how they're laughing at the true crime genre, the salacious way we like to take in news and history.
Yeah, it's great commentary as they mix medias, if you will, in this.
But yeah, the important detail, and this is really important when we're getting back to Judd and who killed Judd, is that there's this movie projector. Part of the Cyclops plan, they were testing it out on Secret Life of Walter Mitty. They went to a black movie theater and strung up in the projection reels a subliminal message that made the entire theater turn on each other. And it's just this horrifying moment that Will in his police uniform walks in there and, people are crying and saying, I don't know why I stabbed the man sitting next to me. I don't know what happened, that he is going to quickly put it together because he's seen at some of these Cyclops hideouts that they're into mesmerism, that they're into mind control, and that he will eventually even find the man that's putting the messages in the film.
Yeah, you get a really brutal scene as he decides to hunt these guys down, and he gets that Frank, and then, decides to go in and burn it all to the ground.
But a superhero would destroy that, right? A superhero would say, what a terrible thing, let's expose this, maybe get some press coverage, but you don't take it home, and you don't use it years later to make a man hang himself. That is like truly a gruesome moment in the show, like a really feel-bad moment when we see that Lou Gossett. We see it from his standpoint. He's sitting in the wheelchair. Don Johnson's car goes by and crosses those nails. And then, that strobe effect we saw briefly now is explained. He's mesmerized and he's told to string himself up. That's why this 105-year-old man got this fully grown man, 200-pound man in the tree, chilling.
I agree. I was a little confused, though. Maybe this was the cops exaggerating. Earlier, they said that Judd died a horrible death, that he was beat, had fabrics under his fingernails. This didn't look... I mean, it's horrific that you're making someone hang themselves, but this didn't look like a violent hanging that they described earlier, so maybe that's just the police exaggerating things to get the other cops riled up.
Mm-hmm. It certainly had that effect. And we see that drip, that's, I think the logo, if you buy the Watchmen comic book now, it's a smiley face pin that the comedian wore with a little drip of blood on it. We see that blood drip down onto his badge. I like those little touches. Sometimes I feel like these redos, they're so in love of what's been done in the past that it just becomes referencing. And Arnie, sometimes I hear you say it's not a strength of this, that they're willing to spend so much time on new characters and new things, but I think the balance is perfect. I think that we have just enough of what was done in Alan Moore to feel tethered to it, but it also feels like its own thing and living on its own energy and is relevant now.
I'll agree with that. It took me a few episodes to get that bearing, but yeah, it has to do this in retrospect. You can't just lean on the old characters and the old ideas. You have to do something new. And yet, because it's under the title Watchmen, I'm not going to be as connected to these characters as I am to the ones that I've known for over a decade since I first read that comic. I'm always going to get more excited when we're talking Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias than when we're talking Looking Glass and Lady True.
Is Watchmen about the characters to you? Is that like the focal point for that story?
It's about ideas, but told through character-driven stuff, and Night Owl and Silk Spectre and things are important characters in that story. I feel like if I wasn't able to cling on to the characters, I wouldn't enjoy Watchmen as much as I do.
I think it's an impediment for my enjoyment of, say, Zack Snyder's movie, is that he tries his best to try and adrenalize. But Alan Moore writes drips. He writes morose people. These are not fun characters. And so there's this real disconnect. I feel like these new characters are much more easy to connect with than Dr. Manhattan, certainly.
Yeah, they don't feel as cynical. Maybe you're not sure how you feel about, like, Sister Night. She's a cop. We see her beating people. That's a bad thing. Like, we don't want cops doing that, but that's the struggle, I guess, with Rorschach. He's an awful guy, but at some level, like, we agree with that, and we want someone to clean the streets up like that. And so for me, this is tapping into those tricky ethics in that world that Alan Moore created. Look, I'm not saying I want, like, Watchmen Tulsa and then Watchmen Boston and Watchmen whatever city, but I feel like this has set a template where it's built that world, it's tapped into it. I want to just be in that world and spend more time there and seeing those weird quirks as they do this alternate history. So yeah, it's great that there's characters here. Looking Glass, I love him, but I also am in love with this world that they've created, that they've built from what Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons did.
I'll go one step farther. I like these characters better than what Alan Moore wrote, period. But let's talk about Angela. Episode 7 is her regaining her memories. She's been lost, and we've had moments where Lori and her husband are trying to get her to snap out of it, trying to get her to sign a release so they can pump her stomach. They eventually shuttle her off to Lady True because she's the only one that knows how to deal with a drug overdose of this magnitude. And Angela has hooked up to some kind of IV, really intense industrial cable that's leading out of the room. Eventually will be connected to an elephant, of all things.
Yeah, you have to be connected to an elephant to overcome this drug overdose?
Well, no, we're told she's connected to Will and, like, the memories are transferring back. This is why I'm like, is there a season 2? Like, this elephant, it feels like memories are being pumped into it so Lady True could do something with it.
That's a joke. Elephants never forget.
No, I get the joke. I just... Is it just a joke, though?
Yes, it's just a joke. She thought that Will was behind that door, and so much of the episode is about her trying to find a way to get behind that door. It's an elephant. Yeah, I think that those kinds of left turns are characterized throughout the series, and I think they're funny. I think they're witty. But the real point of this episode is, as she is coming back into herself, we can learn a lot about Angela, who she was as a child when she lived in Vietnam. This thing starts with her renting Sister Night in a Vietnamese store, a video store. Remember those?
And this is what I'm talking about, that I love what they did with this world that was created. Yeah, you go to Vietnam and it's like this celebration day and they all got Dr. Manhattan mask and they're celebrating him using his laser powers to fry the Vietnamese.
Yeah, a whole puppet show there. And yeah, that's just, I could watch the puppet show. I mean, this thing starts with the Dr. Manhattan documentary and, you know, like, it's important you absorb some of those details. They're going to come back later. Maybe it's not super important, but I just really love slowing down and spending time. Like I said, watching this a second time, my appreciation for it is even higher because of the level of detail work that we're seeing here. But her parents don't want her to watch Sister Night. They think that she's not old enough to distinguish between the fantasy of this, costumed nun character and, you know, she should be watching, I don't know, E.T. Perhaps it's 1985. If E.T. got made, I don't know if Spielberg made E.T. or something else.
You don't do alien movies after a squid attacks you.
Yeah, but the squid came in 85, E.T. came in 82, so we'd have E.T.
Yeah, I don't think the squid has happened yet. But yes, what has happened in this moment is a suicide bomber that, keep in mind, Dr. Manhattan ended the Vietnam War in a day that left a lot of people disgruntled, and she will develop a hatred for Dr. Manhattan because inadvertently what he did led to her parents' death. Her dad, Marcus, is in military fatigues, and they blow him up, call him an invader. And this was the boy, it's important to realize, in the previous episode, who saw his dad putting on the white makeup, tried to put it on there, and the mom said no. You know, even though she was initially encouraging Will to do that, she did not want Marcus to do that. And it seems like he went a different path, that he doesn't support superheroes now, doesn't want his daughter watching Sister Night, has joined the military, the government, instead of putting on a cape and cowl. I think that says a lot about how fathers and sons can see the world differently.
Yeah, the mother says that the father had a bad experience with a man in a mask, and we see the flashback to when the boy tried putting on the white person makeup over his eyes, and that really made the father angry, and that's when the wife and child left to go to Tulsa.
Yeah, I thought that was a powerful scene once he sees his son replicating his behavior, and, you know, the son doesn't understand why his dad's doing it, putting on white face, like, powerful moment. And there seems to be this idea going throughout that it's not about mob justice, it's about the law, that you got to trust in the law. So yeah, the fact that Will was a cop and now we have a soldier here, like, it feels like as Will fell away to become a superhero, and maybe that is what they're calling mob justice, like, this family, they're trying to stay in line with the law and bring that real justice.
And yet Angela will stay rooted with Sister Night. We'll see she never returns that video. And that's the only reason why she didn't blow up, was that she was running back to bring it back.
I mean, the store owner might have blown up too. Who can you return it to at that point?
Well, I don't think so. I think it was very specifically targeting the Americans. But there's this interesting moment where the cops, they just need her to identify. The person that handed off the bomb was the puppeteer, and he has a, very distinctive face with a scar. Can she ID him? She does, but she wants to, what she says is, I want to listen. Does she know they're going to execute them, or does she think they're going to interrogate him?
I thought interrogation based upon I want to listen, but then what we hear is a gunshot, and so I'm like, well, you've heard all there is to hear.
No, I took it that way, that, hey, do you want to hear the execution? And again, playing into that bloodlust we'll see with her later when she's beating up people. That's her impression of cops.
Yeah, so, okay, you're going in that way. I think I'm leaning towards that of like, yes, she knew very well that these cops are going to handle this not by arresting this man, but by executing him. She just wanted to hear that gunshot because that rage is going to boil in her and cause her to become Sister Night. And eventually she gets out of this sweatshop or orphanage where they make you paint Dr. Manhattan dolls or whatever for American tourists. That grandmother comes for her and mentions she has a heart condition. Fortunately, she survives long enough to get her out of the orphanage and she doesn't have to go back, but she dies right there as they're packing up to go back to Tulsa.
So that means she just grows up on the streets? Because she stays in Vietnam at that point.
I assume that's what exactly it means. And yeah, there's some undeveloped parts of her story, but I take it to mean that she did not go back to that orphanage she hated, and she kept a hold of that woman's police badge and eventually, try to bridge the gap of being a vigilante and a cop in Vietnam.
I didn't take her as a vigilante in Vietnam, so that's an interesting reading.
Well, I think that was a motivation, the fact that she wanted to be Sister Night and watch that movie so bad. I feel like that was an influence, and that was pushing her towards that vigilantism.
Yeah. I don't think she actually put on the stuff until she moved to Tulsa, until White Night happened. But I think that she was inspired to kind of what she wanted to do as a superhero, she tried to sublimate and channel into her police work.
Yeah, the way Will was inspired by Sheriff Reeves in that movie, she was inspired by Sister Night.
This is also a moment to talk about Laurie. She has a side story here where she has been taping Angela. Angela has been babbling all the while she's coming down from this overdose, and she feels like she has enough to really dig in here. She goes to confront the widow of Judd and just wants to see if this tracks that her husband might have been part of Cyclops. And I love Frances Fisher is just very matter-of-factly like, oh yeah, sure. And then like clicking on that TV remote, hoping the pit opens up underneath Silk Spectre.
It's such a Dr. Evil from Austin Powers moment. Like, I was laughing at it. It won't work, and then it kind of like opens halfway and then finally opens up and she falls through. Like, they're really trying to do the villain thing here, something they made fun of in that original Watchmen series. Like, you don't do any of this stuff.
It felt like something from a different comic book. It felt like something from a Golden Age comic, not something from a Watchmen comic.
I agree with you, and I'm going to say, and I like it. I feel like it's too drab. I feel like having reread Watchmen again, and even rewatching that movie, it's just so much gloom that it becomes a little oppressive. We want to laugh. We want people to have a sense of humor. We want some variance. And these gloomy gusses, they're cool. It's cool the way that Alan Moore has thought about what they mean and deconstructed them. But I like these characters more, in part because, yeah, they make me laugh in moments like this that I wouldn't expect to be in the Watchmen show. And so basically, Laurie wakes up in captivity. Keen comes to her, and again, I love it. He wants to do the bad guy monologue, and she's like, could you just shut up? I really don't want to hear this. But it's a hard being a white man in America, so I'm going to try being a blue one. His whole game is, if we haven't been able to figure it out from earlier snippets of him and Wade, is that he is going to capture Dr. Manhattan and use his power to, originally they were going to just take over the White House. It sounds like they were going to drive up in trucks and storm the gates.
Oh no, I thought he was working his way through politics to become the president legitimately, and
that's what I took it as.
Maybe, yes. I think that was a plan. But it sounds like it became very focused on the idea that, yes, who needs to be the president when you can be even more powerful? And that, yes, Dr. Manhattan needs to be reflected, is the only true superhero, right? Of the whole Watchmen universe. The only one with magic, supernatural powers. So, yes, you get those, and you could really do anything.
And apparently it's just an open secret that Dr. Manhattan is not on Mars.
Mm-hmm. And that Angela is not really surprised when Lady True finally tells her that. That finally says that, yeah, this group, 7th Cavalry, is going to capture him, absorb him, and she's not shocked. Why? Well, we'll find out in the next episode. She knows it's been 10 years of this relationship. She knows that there was going to be an end, and she now has to get into gear.
I mean, it's kind of shocking at the end of this episode. She's going to, smash open her husband's head, and then glowing blue's going to come out. I'm like, that's where Dr. Manhattan is. Cal is so boring. I never suspected him. But yeah, the fact that she's going to violently murder him to bring Dr. Manhattan out or something, because we don't know about the O-ring in his head yet.
Hey, baby, we're in fucking trouble. Yeah, I remember this episode ending being like a true grabber of it just didn't occur to me that Dr. Manhattan was going to be in it. I don't know why.
Oh, I thought for sure because they kept saying he's not going to be in it. So I'm like, he's going to be in it, but not Cal.
Yeah, I knew he had to come in at some point because they did keep referencing him. I was a little bit shocked that it was Cal. I mean, the way it's revealed is she starts batting his head in with a hammer. And you're like, what the fuck am I watching here? And then you see the blue light come out, and it is a big shock moment.
Yeah. Again, episode 7, I don't think there's been a dull one. I mean, I think maybe episode 2, episode 4, there's been ones that have had less reveals or maybe focused on characters that are less dynamic, but there's always something. There are always mysteries, tantalizing things you want to know. And yeah, how she's been living with Dr. Manhattan, having this relationship, what that means, get answered very well, I think, in episode 8. A god walks into a bar.
I love this episode because it reminds me of my favorite issue of the original Watchmen series. Because there's that issue that is the Dr. Manhattan issue where everything is happening at once and we're seeing his history non-chronologically because he experiences time all at once. And so we see his relationship with the first Silk Spectre, the second Silk Spectre, his disillusionment with mankind. We see it all at once. And here they're going to copy that beat for beat as we see this. Who is this actor playing Dr. Manhattan? We're never going to see his face because they want it to just be Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
It is Yahya.
Is it? It doesn't sound like Yahya. The voice is totally different.
Yeah, the one wearing the mask in the bar does not sound like him.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a similar body type from what I can tell.
Oh, okay. You mean just in this moment. I thought you meant when he's blue and glowing.
In this whole episode, it's somebody else doing the monologuing, doing the talking.
And all the stuff in the past, yeah.
I mean, it gets said that once they find the corpse, that the person that they picked to model him after, he looks different and he sounds different. But yes, I don't know if that's Yahya doing a different voice behind a mask. It didn't occur to me. I do like what you're talking about, the non-chronological editing, helping us understand his point of view, how he sees everything as inevitable because it all happens at once. And it's a funny meet cute with Angela, who's, on the, 22nd anniversary of her parents' death, drinking a cocktail, and the last thing she wants is to see a Dr. Manhattan hitting on her. I think these two have such great interplay here. She has all these reasons for why he should go away. I hate Dr. Manhattan. I never wanted kids. Why get involved in a relationship that's destined to fail? He has good answers for them all. He keeps charming her with his wit and his matter-of-fact confidence that it's all going to end up with them together.
I like a lot of this stuff. There's one part of his history showing, I guess it's just too on the nose when they flash back to when he's a child and he watches this couple have sex and they're like, creation is a very good thing. You should read Genesis in the Bible. And then he's going to go on to create Adam and Eve on Europa. And it's just a little too on the nose. It does feel like they're trying to give a different view of Dr. Manhattan, who was so passionless, and that was his struggle and his problem in the graphic novel, is he just couldn't care for humanity. And the reason he comes back, because this could be controversial, in that comic book, he just goes away, goes to a different galaxy. Here, he fakes going to Mars, and he's really on Europa building his Eden, and then he's like lonely, so he wants to come back and try to connect to humanity. I don't know if that 100% tracks.
Yeah, it does. I mean, what he says is, I wanted to experience the love that these people showed me, and then it just ended up being worship. Like, being worshipped is not being loved. It's a kind of love, but it doesn't allow him to have the emotional response that he probably did as a child, that he did for this couple in this moment. And that's, yes, everything that he's going to do is about tricking himself to forget his powers so that he can have the very human response of falling in love. I really like that. And it also just explains why Crookshanks and Phillips, they all look the same. They are the model. They're the fetuses that keep getting dragged up by Jeremy Irons and being turned into the next clones he's going to abuse.
That's the couple he saw having sex, right?
Yeah, it's the archetype for the perfect couple and the one that introduced him to the idea of Eden in the first place. Maybe a little convenient, but I don't know. I liked it.
And maybe this is me just overthinking it while I'm watching this, but looking at the original Alan Moore Watchmen comic book series, and then looking at this episode, I feel like, A, the episode is leaning almost too heavily on the non-chronology that Alan Moore did, and B, I don't understand why Dr. Manhattan makes these choices for Angela when he didn't for Laurie as Silk Spectre, when he was supposedly in love with her.
All I can chalk it up to is he's trying to be more human this time.
Yeah, he's learned. Yeah, that was my first relationship. Who you are with your first girlfriend is not who you are with your next one. Hopefully. You're learning as you go.
But he doesn't learn as he goes, because he doesn't go. Everything is at once to him. He knows everything at once. So if he would do the sacrifice? Why would he wait for Angela to do the sacrifice? I don't understand even why he approaches Angela at the bar.
I'll just say I like this episode. I like how they're replicating that comic by jumping around. I just do have issues with Dr. Manhattan. Maybe on more viewings it will get ironed out, but it feels like a lot of his stuff. I mean, he is a god. He knows everything. Maybe he's just here because he knows he needs to be here for events to turn out the way I guess he wants them to save the day. But a lot of his stuff feels convenient.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't allow for free will. It doesn't sound like he feels like he's an active participant in his own life. It sounds like I'm doing this because this is what has to happen, and that not because I'm making different choices, so to speak. So that's how emotionally he's experiencing it. And I think that's what he wants to escape. When he was on Europa, he didn't feel that connection, and he thinks with this woman that he can have something different. And so they're going to create a tunnel of love. I like this as a metaphor. They date for 6 months, and then they break up, because how annoying would it be every time you have a thought, every time you're going to do something, your partner tells you, oh yeah, I know you're going to do that, and I know why you're going to do that, and I know what it's related. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't be able to have a relationship with Dr. Manhattan. You could only have a relationship with Cal.
Yeah, and like Lori, who Dr. Manhattan's doing scientific experiments and sending duplicates of him to go bang her, like we see that during this sex scene. He's somewhere else, and she's asking, where are you? And it kind of kicks off this fight.
And that grew. I mean, it should be said that there was still some humanity in him, and the more that he explored his power, the more he went to Mars, the further connected he saw, why am I worried so much about humanity when there's so much more, is the way that I took him in the comic book. And here, yeah, he's trying to come back. He's trying to connect to some part of him, of what he saw and experienced as a child. And so that's really, he's tricking himself into being able to be a human being again. He strikes a deal with Veidt, that basically he walks to Karnak, his Antarctic lair. We'll see that Jeremy Irons is there watching CNN, seeing that a nuclear power plant has melted down. And yeah, it didn't work. I tried to create a utopia here by ending the nuclear standoff, and they still love their nuclear weapons. They still love their nuclear power. This has not changed a bit. That Manhattan can basically say, do you want to live in my utopia and I'll take yours? That sounds like a fair trade. It sounds like the narcissist would really love to be worshipped, and that Cal, when he pops in, I'll just call it the ring, he has this insignia on his forehead that, you know, Ozymandias has done something to it to make him forget.
There's some technobabble about covering it in some kind of particles. Here's the thing. What I do love, and maybe this is too cutesy and too much of a callback to the original, but when he's like, I made that device 30 years ago, just like when he monologued and said, oh, I already ended the world 30 minutes ago. Like, I don't know. It was a funny little throwback that it almost felt like he says it. This was his plan A to try to defeat Manhattan and stop him so he could go through with his plan to bring in that squid.
And how fun to be able to use something that you already invented. Again, you can see the agony of a guy that it just kills him that he's getting no credit for any of this. I want people to say, you're awesome for doing what you've done. So yeah, he should really love Europa. He should really love, we'll see that he probably did for a little bit until it became that prison. But yes, for Angela, it's kind of a romantic, it's almost like a marriage. You know, she takes it like a ring. She says, I love you. She pops it into his head. And now he doesn't have to be burdened by all of that God complex. Now he can just be a loving husband.
The whole setup is that it just makes him forget that he has powers, so he won't use them unless it's a instinctual thing, like just a reflex in a time of high stress.
Yeah, but it will only be for 10 years. He knows that this is a tunnel of love. I'm inside of this, and once we get to the end of it, it'll be 10 years, and it will end tragically. I also love this line of like, why would I want to do something that's going to end tragically? Don't all relationships?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess when you look at the end, there's always sadness. So yes, nothing goes on forever. Is 10 years worth it to be hopelessly in love for 10 years? Angela bites, you know, she says, we need to move somewhere else. We don't need to be here in Vietnam where people know me and they might know you. We'll manufacture a car accident and say, you know, all of this he thinks is because he's had a car accident that's given him amnesia. And now we can go to my folks in Tulsa. And that sort of explains how she got from Vietnam to where she's been at the beginning of the series. And we jump to 2019 again, where she's finished taking the hammer to his head, and they're trying to figure out what is best to do. He's trying to get his bearings to what's happened in the last 10 years, and the kids see him. He refuses to stop looking like Cal and sounding like Cal, so the kids see a blue cow walking in the swimming pool. You're not going to ignore that when your adoptive father is, doing Jesus tricks. And he teleports them away to Will. And this is an interesting moment. He knows Will is waiting in the Playhouse, the movie theater from 1921 that's now hosting the all-black Oklahoma play. He has Will waiting for him there. It was a deal they struck 10 years ago. When he was setting up this tunnel of love, he went to see Lou Gossett Jr. in New York, told him what he needed to know. That's why Lou Gossett was talking about Dr. Manhattan. And we have sort of a chicken and egg paradox. Angela asked Dr. Manhattan to ask Will, why did you think that Don Johnson was Cyclops? She puts that idea in his head. She is essentially killing Don Johnson in this moment.
And I thought this was, again, going to go in a very different direction than it does. Again, Watchmen's about tragedy and superheroes that can't save the day. So I'm like, oh, Angela caused all this. Maybe Don Johnson was an innocent guy after all. Maybe that was just a relic from his grandfather that he kept and he wasn't racist. And unfortunately, none of that really plays out. Like, they say that line that we've created all this and we've done this loop, but I don't know. Does it mean something?
Well, again, when you think about blood on hands and clean labels, it just helps with the idea. There's no way of really knowing whether Don Johnson deserved that, Judd deserved that, and there's no way of really pinpointing who killed him. But you can see that, it's muddy, it's gray, it's messy. It at least allows us to see Lou Gossett Jr. as a little bit more understandable. Because at one point, he was saying tick-tock and hanging out with Lady True, and I was like, okay, he's definitely in on the bad guy plot. And now I can see that he has been secretly working with Dr. Manhattan and their allies, and that, what he was doing, we knew that he was working on a plot to kill Dr. Manhattan, but it's at his consent. I mean, what gets said is that we had an agreement that this is how it was going to end. This episode ends with a spectacular shootout on the lawn. Angela gets her guns, goes out there to face the 7th Cavalry, thinks she's won, but Manhattan, in trying to save her from some of the gunmen, gets zapped by a tachyon cannon.
Whatever that is.
And has been transported to JCPenney's. They've built a big cage for him there.
All I know is in Star Trek, they always had a tachyon pulse. In The Next Generation, I think they used that glowy sensor dish to send tachyon pulses, and so technobabble.
But this felt very Dr. Manhattan. This is the guy who said, hey, maybe it's a good thing that your mother was raped because that led to you, Lori. Like, everything has to be looked at his perspective. And here's the moment I love you as you're murdering all these people and they're trying to murder me. This is when I fell in love with you.
Well, but you understand what he means. I've already told you there's no way out, and yet that you would still fight anyway. I mean, that is romance, right? That is the very spirit of romance, is that even knowing that you can't escape, you're going to fight for what you love. I get it. And he's not dead. By getting zapped by this cannon, I thought, oh, well, he's gone. But no, the next episode will reveal he's, here in a cage. There's plots within plots on how best to use him. See how they fly. A lyric from I Am the Walrus. We've talked about how each episode is an introduction. Here we finally understand. Lady True has said, I want my parents here when I have my successful career culminating event. This Millennium Clock is going to go off. We find out that Bian, her child, is actually her mother that she had cloned.
She's slowly feeding her memories.
Yes. And then we also flash back here to 1985, why Adrian Veidt is giving his monologue on camera for President Redford. The cleaning lady is sneaking into his office, taking a vial of his frozen sperm and feeding herself that and creating Lady True.
Yeah, looking at the themes about race and white supremacy and all that, I actually liked how this worked out. Is here is the smartest man in the world getting tricked by someone that he didn't consider worth his time, maybe because of race, because of class, whatever. But she's going to get the one up on him eventually, and he never sees it coming.
Yeah, she says break the yoke of slavery, which more egg metaphors maybe, but Also, just the idea that, like, yeah, this, you can't believe that Adrian's paying these people well, right? Like, this is a slave class working in his Antarctic lair. He spent the money on the squid. He didn't spend it on her. And so the slavery she's trying to break is, I'm going to have a daughter that will, climb out of this class. And the irony that Lady True is going to come walking back years later and saying, Daddy, can you spot me $42 billion? I want to save the world again.
By buying Twitter for $42 billion. That blew my mind. That is the exact amount.
Yeah, she pretty much makes it clear, I need Dr. Manhattan's powers. I don't have the tech to do that. And so, spot me this. I think that, Veidt doesn't do it because he doesn't want to believe he has a daughter?
I think it's part that and part like, oh, if you really are my offspring, you'll be able to do what I did by shutting all my wealth and becoming a self-made man.
He says that, and then I also wonder about race, too. Is the fact that she's part Vietnamese.
Well, yeah, no, I think that is the subtext with Adrian Veidt.
Yeah, he does not want to acknowledge her as daughter, and some people might feel very different if confronted with paternity test like this. If you're in the middle of Antarctic and feeling depressed, having a long-lost daughter show up could be a nice thing, but he sends her away. And do we know how? I know she had some lines, but how did she make her fortune then? It'd be quite a thing to be able to get the money to build the clock. I know he's very surprised to see that she's able to pull it off. Making phone booths doesn't feel like it, but we've seen true technologies on just about any device that's been featured in this series. So I guess she just got into tech.
She is the world's smartest woman.
Exactly. Adrian was the world's smartest man, and he gave away his father's immeasurable fortune to make it on his own. If you're that smart, then you make it.
There you go. She inherited his intellect. Okay. Well, yeah, maybe that is it. I know that he's calling her daughter and really happy that she's done all of this when the spaceship finally lands on Europa and he can finally leave his prison.
I thought I was going to be so blue-balled because I was waiting for Ozymandias to return home, and he gets on the ship and they say, put your hands on your hips. He gets sprayed with gold. I'm like, she just killed him and turned him into a bronze statue.
Yeah, I thought it was a great joke. A great end to his story is, his hubris being his downfall. Like, he escapes Jupiter and gets turned into a gold statue. I don't know, that feels fitting for him.
But yet, why have him in this just to get turned into a gold statue? I was really frustrated.
To get back at him for being an awful dad.
Yeah, but why have him in this series just because he's an awful dad? I wanted him to do something.
Themes?
Well, they fortunately don't kill him and they give him something to do.
Oh, for sure. And she's legit. She literally, like a lot of these characters, wants someone to be proud of what she's accomplishing, wants someone to validate that what she's doing is actually the right thing. And so, yeah, that she wants both her mother and her father here in this bizarre form, be it in a statue or as a cloned daughter eating nostalgia pills. Yeah, a weird Lady True. But they get to work, they go to Greenwood neighborhood, and they start getting set up, which is very far away from where Dr. Manhattan actually is. It takes me a minute to realize part of their plot is going to be to teleport all of that to the Greenwood neighborhood. And I think they do something for the comic book fans. It was a big part of it that we always cut to this newsstand, and there was a guy that always had newspapers. We've had a couple scenes of Beyond stopping by and saying, oh, mommy wants her papers. But here, it's a cute moment when Lady True herself in person picks up the newspapers, and Veidt is like, Redford's still president? Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a fun moment and did make me think back to the original comic. And yeah, Lady True, he's like, it's so great to see you in the flesh. And she's like, yes, while I still have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's so creepy, and yet she smiles and you can't help being charmed. So that's her power, is that what she's saying should terrify you, and yet she can sell it. Maybe that's why she got to be so successful.
And Ozymandias does get to do the Rorschach thing at the newsstand, where Rorschach was always that mysterious guy with the end is nigh sign. He's going to say the words, the end is nigh.
Yeah, because the Millennium Clock, help me out with this. It doesn't really look like a clock. They're just saying it's a clock because in the comic book run, they were always talking about the Doomsday Clock. This is just, really, it's a battery, right? It's a storage for energy. It's a giant capsule that's going to pop off the top of a tower, float above, and hold Dr. Manhattan's energy until it can be transferred into a new person. That's the clock. Admittedly, I wouldn't know how to make a clock, but it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of Swiss parts.
Maybe it's a giant sundial or something. That's why she needed all that land.
Yeah. I'm not sure I see the clock in it, but I know it's the Watchmen, and so...
It's a watchtower, yeah.
Yeah, they want to keep the metaphors going. And again, she has the teleportation, so even though we're over at JCPenney, and he's, the senator has amassed his father there, again, that theme of, wanting Dad to be proud, and, he made a point of sending Lori there because he remembered that she was the ex-lover. Did he think she would enjoy watching Manhattan die? Or did he think that she would be hurt by it?
I think he thought she would be hurt by it, but this was a disappointment to me. I thought that this was going to be a big deal, their reunion here, seeing them, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. I was kind of bummed out by that.
Yeah, these characters get sidelined. It should also be said that Wade is in a Rorschach mask, whispering, a mirror guy is here, he's going to rescue you. But they're really bystanders for other people in this climax. They're really more or less taking it all in. I will just say that the actress has a heartbreaking look on her face. You can tell if the idea was that she would be overjoyed, that if you go back to that joke of I'm going to kill the god by throwing the rock, she doesn't want him to go. And she certainly doesn't want the 7th Cavalry to get his power. Unfortunately for her, they don't.
And it's kind of frustrating to me, though, that in this episode, the climax, both Angela and Lori are left just watching on the sidelines. These have been our two main protagonists this whole series, and they become spectators here at the end. It's like, why did we follow them so much if they weren't going to be the ones to resolve the issue? They aren't our heroes.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the characters I've been invested in just sit around for this climax, and it turns into this big Rube Goldberg device of ending, and I almost would have liked to seen Keen get those godly powers and be like, oh yeah, what do I care about race? I'm a god. I'm going to go off to another galaxy like Dr. Manhattan did. I don't know. It feels like they really went for a more action-oriented ending here, and I don't know if that's the way to go.
I mean, it should be said, there wasn't a whole lot going on in the original climax of Watchmen for most of the people to do. I don't remember Silk Spectre doing anything in that either. They just basically watched the TV and found out there was a squid.
Yeah, I feel like this is all of a sudden Ozymandias is taking control, and he's the head of the Watchmen again, and he's pulling all these things behind the scenes, getting frozen squids ready, but it's weird that all of a sudden he's the hero of this story.
Yeah, he's been the epilogue joke, and now he's the one saving the day. And the fact that the day is saved seems kind of very anti-Watchmen.
Yeah, it's weird to have an upbeat ending.
Well, I think it's more nuanced. I mean, it's worth just saying, are we sure that True wouldn't make the world better? Her plot is, just to reinforce, we know that the 7th Cavalry is going to use it to wage wars and create racial unrest. But she's talking about cleaning up the air, a wave of the hand. Just think of all the things that are wrong with Earth that you could fix if you were Dr. Manhattan. We will have the white guy say, the white guy, by the way, who calls himself the smartest man in the world, say she has too much hubris, which is, I think, a joke. But we can't be sure that she is the villain or that she wouldn't have benefited from getting those powers, that we wouldn't all be better with her as Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I only suspect her because Ozymandias says, I'm a narcissist, and I know what a narcissist is like, and she's a narcissist. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Again, you get these godly powers, and you kind of stop caring about Earth. That would have been a good joke, too. She's like, what do I care about clean air? I'm going off to a different galaxy. Have everyone become Dr. Manhattan and just lose their passion and leave.
I don't think True being defeated is conclusively a villain falling. I'll just put it that way.
I agree. I don't really see her as a villain. We don't know which way she would have gone.
We can't know. Yes, she's a little creepy, but nothing conclusive here.
See, and the way I read this, and admittedly, there's a lot of inference and not a lot actively stated, so you guys may read this differently. I read that she orchestrated everything leading up to this point. Smartest woman in the world. She manipulated the 7th Cavalry. She manipulated the senator. She is the one behind all of this. How would the 7th Cavalry even have this kind of technology if she hadn't engineered it?
Yeah, she says she let him steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing her work, yes, but I don't know how directly influenced, but I agree. She more or less was having them set the stage for her plan.
Yeah, and so I take her to be an evil person, a megalomaniac. To say I'll fix the world is very authoritarian and dictatorship, fix the world according to how she sees fit.
I mean, clean air, no nukes. I hope we all agree on that.
Yeah, again, if she had done what she had promised, we would all love her. And was it worth, letting the 7th Cavalry get to the point that they had? These kinds of calculations, fortunately, I'm not a god. I don't have to make those judgments.
Well, I took her as a villain, and I took this as evil vanquished when Veidt sends the frozen squids from the sky.
Yeah, but again, all it really is a man punishing a woman for doing exactly what he did 30 years ago, right? I mean, Ozymandias has no leg to stand on here by making these judgments about her.
No, he is an unreliable narrator. There's no reason to trust him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you even hear that, Laurie was even kind of questioning the idea of oh, yeah, she's the one with hubris. Come on. But yes, we are not comfortable anytime light is coming from the sky and people are getting power. This is a cliche of superhero movies that villains often look like this. And so, yes, the easiest reading of this climax is that she is becoming evil, and how fun it is to turn the squids into Gatling guns, freeze them a little bit, and now that they fall out of the sky, they're not just gross little squishes on the sidewalk, but actual bullets raining down, putting holes in her hands. I think killing the cops, too.
Yeah, anyone outside. That frozen squid is coming for you.
Angela is smart enough to get some kind of, deflecting metal and runs into the theater, and this is where she connects with Will, who's been watching over the kids. And yeah, they kind of process what he knew, his role in the demise of her husband, and we see some forgiveness. We see him advocating that she needs to heal, and maybe Dr. Manhattan dying is okay. We don't need superheroes.
Or do we? Because, as you mentioned, Stuart, there's been this egg metaphor the whole time, and one of the things in episode 8 that Dr. Manhattan postulated is that he could put his power into an egg, and then a human could eat that egg and get his powers. Well, there was one egg left in the refrigerator. Did Dr. Manhattan put his power in the egg? And Angela's going to eat the egg?
I hope so, if you're eating raw egg, that there's some powers in it.
Well, I mean, you can get those powers to go train for boxing if you're Sylvester Stallone. But we all knew how this ending was going to come, right? We all knew that it was not going to be definitive.
Cut right before she steps on the water?
Yes, I'm just okay, they're going to cut the moment she hits the water. We're never going to know whether she has powers or not. And sure enough, that's the hoary ending they take.
Hoary? Why is that a terrible ending? That's a wonderful ending.
Okay, I would like you to explain why you're saying wonderful. It's an ending, and I like the joke of Ozymandias getting arrested by Laurie for the death of 3 million people. But what is the purpose of Dr. Manhattan's legacy? That so much of this stuff is about legacy being passed on, that now a black person is God, and this has been, about them not having their place.
What Will says to her, because he seems to know a lot more than he ever directly says, but he's now living with them, and as he's going to bed, he's like, yeah, Dr. Manhattan was a good man, but he could have done more. And to me, that was signaling that take those powers and fulfill the legacy. Go and be the real superhero that he never could because he was too detached from humanity. So, conceivably, and maybe you can factor in that she's a woman, that she's black, that she's had a minority experience that will make her more empathetic. I don't know. I'll take those readings. But yes, she could be a better Dr. Manhattan than what we had before. And what I see is, yes, her foot's going down. Look at the bottom of it. There's a little bit of blue. Is that reflection?
I was looking for a blue glow.
It's there. There's a little bit of blue there.
There is. I freeze framed it, and I thought it might be reflection from the pool. I thought it was clearly an ambiguous ending and on purposely ambiguous.
Do you not like that?
It feels very non-committal. It, again, like Jacob says, it's an ending, but I don't think it's a very fulfilling ending.
The ending should be her walking on water and saying, I'm gonna kick your ass now in her sister knight outfit.
If she was set up, and I know, yes, there are the scenes where she's going crazy, beating up 7th Cavalry guys. I don't know, if there was more of a through line with what would she do with those powers? Would she be good with godly powers? That ambiguous ending, I think, would have hit more. Like if, oh, this is dangerous, maybe that she has them, or maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I don't feel like that was the through point with her character. And so it just comes all of a sudden at the end, and I don't really know what to do with it.
I don't know. To me, yes, we can't assign whether it's going to be a good or a bad thing that she has the powers, but she probably does. And what comes next could have been in season 2. I mean, just as a TV series, this could have been a great tease for what happens next. You wouldn't have been complaining, I don't think, if there had been promise of another season to tell you. The fact that we will never know, yeah, maybe that does irritate.
It's also irritating because I feel like even Lindelof didn't know. Leave it up to the next writers to deal with.
I'm wondering if you have a thought about what should have happened.
We could have just ended on a more definitive note. I don't think I need to see her eat an egg and reach her foot out onto a pool. We could have cut all of that.
And so the ending would be...
You're asking me to write an ending to a series that I wouldn't have written to this point where we need this ending.
Okay, well, I'm really curious. I didn't hear a whole lot of hate going through this podcast, but a line like that and what you said at the beginning makes me really wonder if you're really going to Red Arrow this.
Oh, I am. I just didn't want a harsher glow.
Oh, my God.
It's inevitable, Stuart. We already know what's going to happen.
Jacob Stewart, do you recommend Watchmen 2019? Jacob.
As someone who likes the comics, not just for Watchmen, but just in general, the comics, like, there is a struggle sometimes coming to an adaptation and, oh gosh, am I going to have to see Superman kill or Batman shoot guns, do things that I feel are forbidden for them to do because of the comics. And so that's always a tricky thing. Like, do I accept this as its own form of media, or is this part of the dialogue and what this character is? And you can have different outcomes depending on your experience, if you're really into the comics or not. So this, like I said, I don't ever want to see Superman and Dr. Manhattan hanging out, DC. Awful idea. Don't do it. Stop stomping all over Alan Moore's legacy with this comic. Fortunately, I feel like this series, they understood the spirit of Watchmen. And that's a big difference from what Snyder did, who understood the visual representation. He knew how to make those pages be put up on the big screen and look pretty close, but understanding what is Watchmen about. Because if you just read it, like when I first read it, I wasn't very mature. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a hokey murder mystery. What do I care? But then as I matured and learned more about history, world history, comic book history, like that graphic novel took on a lot more meaning because there's just so much going on. That's how Alan Moore is. Go read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and you'll understand how well read you are, whether you're following the story and characters or not. Like, if you haven't read those novels, then you're not going to understand these characters. So I'm glad that this has that spirit of the Watchmen, the complexity, the moral ambiguity, dealing with difficult subjects, race. Like, if 2019 and now feels like a whole world apart, and like if this was coming out now in 2023, there would be all kinds of think pieces. Maybe there were and I just missed them.
There were.
Okay. I just wasn't into the show, and so none of that came across my way. But I'm like, wow, this is really inflammatory. Some people could take it that way, and the ideas it's getting at with America and white supremacy and race and can we get along and how do we overcome all those problems? Like, all that stuff works. There are problems with the ending for me. We've discussed it. Like, it doesn't quite hit, but this is a very, very good series. This is worthy of having that title, Watchmen. Sorry, Alan Moore, you should have let more than Dave Gibbons' name be on this. You should have let yours. This was worthy of it. So yeah, strong recommend for HBO's Watchmen series.
Stuart.
Yeah, I'll go to a really extreme position here. A real contender for the greatest superhero movie ever made. I'm struggling to think if I've ever seen anything better in the genre, and the only thing I could come up with is Dark Knight. Dark Knight might be better. They're very similar, right? They're both in the spirit of Alan Moore, and better than Alan Moore, because Alan Moore has really long, talky dialogue bubbles that go on forever, blah, 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 and he never lets a sense of fun come into his work. He's so intelligent. He's so thoughtful and philosophical, but he never has fun. And what this series has improved on is you actually let these characters live and breathe. They aren't there holding up their archetypes and their representations and symbolism and just offering commentary and deconstruction. You really care. Again, if this had just been a CBS show about cops, and that first episode was just the beginning of many adventures of Don Johnson and this crew, I would have kept watching. I think that it's just the chemistry that you have. But then all the surprises, all the left turns and things that you think are happening and then they don't, the mysteries, the floor falling out, just delightfully constructed. This thing is a mystery box that you could watch 100 times and find new things in it throughout. I'm so impressed with it. I don't have fault. There's nothing here that I dislike. I think it is a perfect representation of superhero.
Wow. Perfect. I don't know that I've ever heard you use that word and not qualify it. And as I've stated, I'm giving this a weak not recommend, basically because as a series, the early episodes left me very cold and I found it a hard series to get into. I wouldn't have kept watching past, I'd say, episode 3 if it wasn't for Now Playing and us reviewing this. And that, to me, the fact of I would have turned this off makes it a not recommend. Now, the thing about it that is a little sticky for me is it gets better. I think that starting with episode 5, it really has a good upswing.
I didn't hear you say you didn't like the first episodes. I heard you say I was disappointed there's no Dr. Manhattan.
There was that as part of it, but I also just had trouble getting into the series. I didn't like Sister Night as much as you did right off the bat.
Okay.
But to me, this series gets better. It peaks with episode 5, but episodes 6 and 7 are really strong, episode 8. And then episode 9 feels like a bit of a letdown. I wish that all of the Veidt stuff paid off better than him just showing up to throw calamari. I wish that it felt like it was integrating more of the characters into the climax instead of having them be spectators of the climax. There's a lot of good in this series, and so I hate to poo-poo it entirely, and that's why it's a weak not recommend. But I can't recommend a series that I wouldn't have continued watching if it were just for my own enjoyment.
I think you can. I mean, I'll offer, sometimes I watch something and go, this is not very good, and by the end I'm won over, and I say, oh, it's good. Yeah, because I come in one way does not mean that I have to say that's the way I feel.
Are you saying it's like a tunnel? You could go in one end and come out the other, different?
A tunnel of love.
Yeah, well, this was not a tunnel of love. This was a tunnel where it was a one-way tunnel, and I couldn't get out of it. And you know what? If this had really blown me away with episode 9, and all the pieces had fallen together in a way that I felt was more fulfilling, I probably would Green Arrow this, because I am borderline. But as it is, I just didn't find the trip worth it. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze here. I'm not swallowing the raw egg, and I'm giving it a red arrow.
Okay, I'm trying to respect that, but just to close the loop on this, and you're with Zack Snyder so much more because
there was a grandeur and a vibe to his work that this never came close to replicating. The way he used music, despite having Trent Reznor here, this series never lived up to that. Despite how overblown Zack Snyder could be, how overlong some of those cuts of Watchmen grew to be, I just found myself really enjoying Snyder's vision.
And by vision, you mean just literally the visuals.
Yeah.
The visuals and the cinematic quality really hyped you up. And it was a rock and roll show to watch that movie.
Yes.
Okay. Because I just want to say, most of your complaints about this series, about the characters and people just standing around and all, could be said about that story.
I feel like Rorschach does a lot more towards the end there. And, you know, I feel like the great thing about that ending is that it undercuts heroics. They're so helpless because everything has already happened, and then when Rorschach's going to do something, he gets zapped away. So, you're right, but it also had a bigger twist to it than this episode has.
Okay, well, I'm stunned and surprised, but there's still one more DC in the pot, and I guess maybe this will be the one to bring us together. Maybe we'll both agree
The one Arnie's looking forward to more than this, Aquaman 2.
We'll both agree the Lost Kingdom is not a lost opportunity. Yaya's back. It's just worth saying that Yahya Abdul-Mateen, too, was in this series, got an Emmy for this series. He'll be back. I think they're all coming back, right? Even Amber Heard has somehow been left in the picture.
Barely.
She's apparently in it briefly. If you look at the trailer, you can catch her for a fraction of a second.
Yeah, we'll see. You know what? I did not like Aquaman. And there's nothing about this trailer or the years of retooling and editing that lead me optimistic that this is going to be worth anything. But Jason Momoa can be fun, and hopefully it won't suck too much.
It looks like he's having fun in the movie, and so I hope that means that we'll have fun watching the movie.
I don't know, it depends how many scenes they have of an octopus playing drums. Best scene in that first film.
In the meantime, something else that's wrapping up, Home Alone. We've had 6 installments. This Friday, we get to the last of them. Home Sweet Home Alone. I don't know if it's going to be sweet, but it's going to be an end.
I am hopeful. Optimism reigns supreme with me, we know, but I am hopeful because this was a made-for-Disney Plus movie. We know that Disney is trying to put more prestigious content on its streaming service. We've reviewed a lot of Disney Plus TV series, or miniseries at least, that we've said some positive things about. We know that they put their money on there, looking at the budget of Secret Invasion. Could this be the best Home Alone since the first? It has the possibility, just based on the pedigree and the cast.
And how terrible the ones in the middle have been.
But we'll find out for our silver level donors. You know, ring those silver bells if you can. I know it's the holidays, but if you can donate $10 or more, you'll get to celebrate the season with 6 Home Alone reviews, the 6th of which coming out this Friday.
And yeah, I don't think the movies are very good, but I really enjoyed talking to you and Justin about them. It's a lot of fun. I hope you can join us, because I think it's a good time, even if it's not maybe a stellar series.
So Jacob Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, good night and Kareem!
Okay, guys, mission accomplished.
Good work, Weather Wizard.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Bravo, Justice League, bravo, a virtuoso performance. But I want you to keep one thing in mind about the weather. It can change at any moment.
Come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com each week as we review another DC Comics film.
Now, if you begin to feel an intense and crushing feeling of religious terror at the concept, don't be alarmed. That indicates only that you are still sane.
And in the NowPlayingPodcast.com archives, you can find reviews of other comic book films, such as Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, The Avengers, X-Men, The Punisher, and Fantastic Four.
What is it?
The future, gentlemen. The future.
You can also listen to our reviews of other movie series, including The Fast and the Furious, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, Terminator, Predator, and many more.
Only the best of the best come here.
Find hundreds of movie review podcasts at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
You know, I like to go watch movies. You know, I like to watch long movies because, you know, I run around all day.
If you want even more Now Playing reviews, place your order now for the first Now Playing book, Underrated Movies We Recommend. Get reviews of 125 films our hosts love.
We don't do this thing because it's permitted. We do it because we have to. We do it because we're compelled.
You can order the book by clicking the banner at the top of our homepage.
We've got to tell the others. There's no time.
Oh, yes, there is.
You can follow Now Playing on Facebook and Twitter, where we post announcements of new episodes and where the hosts post movie mini reviews. Links to our social media pages are available on our homepage.
You can't spend your life in front of a computer, Tori.
You know, it's a lot safer.
Support from listeners like you help keep Now Playing operating.
Yeah, well, you know, fighting for truth, justice, and the American way just isn't helping my bank account, you know?
You can find a link to donate using PayPal at the bottom of our website, nowplayingpodcast.com.
A watchdog group of nuclear scientists has moved the doomsday clock to 2 minutes until midnight.
Now Playing's DC Teams retrospective series is edited by Heath, Santiago, and Arnie.
God doesn't make the world this way. We do.
Now Playing credit narration by Brock.
How I know? He talks funny!
Now Playing is not affiliated with DC Comics or Warner Brothers Pictures. DC Comics and all that the DC Universe contains are copyright and trademark Warner Brothers Entertainment, and no infringement is intended.
Wait till you see what I'm going to do to you when I get you back to Batcave.
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
It's a joke. It's all a joke.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2023, all rights reserved, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
You don't think that's a little paranoid?
Is that what they say about me now? Paranoid.
Nothing ends. Nothing ever ends.
Superheroes, disperse!
Bon voyage.
I didn't know he was Jehovah's Witness. I knew it was some kind of religious bit, but I didn't catch Jehovah.
Yeah, Watchtower's a Jehovah Witness.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar. But
they haven't knocked on your door lately, I guess.
Long story. But
oh no.
But so Jacob Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, good night and Kareem!
Why did you do that? I do remember that, but I don't remember why.
What was that?
Because this is all part of the DC Teams review that includes the Legion of Superheroes show.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
A deeper cavern than anything you'd explore in this TV series. If you can remember why they said Kareem. I don't. And I was there.